American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126 The Talking Rabbit, Angry Azu. Zatanna was shocked. She never thought that her mother was still alive. The emotions that surged up in her heart were not only shock, but also anger. Why did you tell me she was dead, Dad? Zatanna angrily questioned the father on the poster. She felt that she had been living in her father's deception for all these years. It turned out that all the feelings she had felt before were lies. Why so many years? Zatanna's emotions were a little unbalanced. She grabbed the poster. Why did you lie to me? Zatanna roared angrily and tore the poster off directly. With a bang, she sat on the ground holding the torn poster. She felt infinite grievances in her heart. She sat on the ground and buried her head in her knees helplessly and cried. Squeak! The door was suddenly pushed open and Peter walked into the room. When he entered the room, he saw Zatanna crying with her head buried. He looked around the room and was a little disappointed that he didn't notice anything unusual about this secret house. Are you okay, Zatanna? Peter half squatted down and asked the girl who was crying in sorrow. Zatanna raised her red eyes and said to Peter, I don't know. I don't recognize my father anymore, she said to Peter aggrievedly. This is the first time I realize that I am living in a lie. Well, sometimes the lies of parents are not all malicious, Zatanna sniffed. Don't all lies look the same? Of course not, they evolve gradually. Peter shook his head and said, at first, it was lies like you picked it up from the trash can. I saved your New Year's money and will give it to you when you grow up. You will go blind if you watch TV too closely. After a pause, he continued, then as we grow up, our ability to distinguish between truth and falsehood improves, and our parents' lying skills become more sophisticated. I don't like it, you eat it, I don't need it. Don't buy it and so on. Listening to Peter's words, Zatanna quickly understood what Peter meant. Her uncomfortable mood eased a little, and she gradually regained her sanity. Speculating that her father might have some unspeakable secrets, Zatanna gradually calmed down. Okay, let's go. Peter saw that the other party's mood had eased a little, and stretched out his hand to her. Zatanna nodded, stretched out her hand and was pulled up by Peter. Holding Peter's hand, she felt a warmth. Pushing the door open and walking out, the scene in front of her suddenly changed. The familiar scene disappeared, replaced by unfamiliar decorations and layouts. The floor and carpets were hanging in the sky, vases and sofas were across the walls, and stairs extending everywhere led to different areas. Zatanna was a little confused staring at the strange room in front of her. Is this still her home? What happened? Is Dad back? Zatanna looked at Peter, hoping that Peter could give her an answer. However, Peter was also confused about this. The rabbit in Zatanna's arms saw the changes in the room in front of her and immediately jumped out of her arms. The rabbit standing on the ground stood up and muttered, what a day full of surprises. Zatanna didn't notice that the rabbit could speak, and continued to mutter to herself, what happened in my house? It seems that it has awakened. Wait, Zatanna realized that something was wrong and looked at the rabbit in shock. Burks, you just spoke. Peter also cast his eyes on the rabbit. The rabbit can also speak. Has he come to some kind of Alice Wonderland? Since the house can awaken, it's not strange that the rabbit can speak. Burks shook his ears and said, I'm not a real rabbit. I'm a Puka beast spirit, a confidant of the magician, Puka, Irish elf. Zatanna looked at the rabbit in disbelief. Puka alias Burks? Is it true? I don't know, but I guess your father must find it very interesting. Burks complained about Zatanna's father. Since he had already seen Kelly transform into a white wolf, Peter quickly accepted the scene in front of him. He asked the rabbit, why did this house change? Because it awakened. The rabbit said, the awakening house is full of ancient and dangerous secrets. It has been guarded by the head since ancient times. The head's job is mainly to prevent the secrets in the house from being touched by evil forces. Then it cast its eyes on Zatanna. In order to achieve this goal, your father disguised it and put it into a magical sleep state. It dreamed that it was an ordinary house, so it became an ordinary house. Zatanna digested some information and asked the rabbit, so, my father is not what I thought, and my house is not my house. Yes, the rabbit replied to her, there is a powerful artifact that maintains a spell that keeps the house dormant and hidden. There is also a key that can lock the magic tightly. Before the other party finished speaking, Zatanna took the initiative to say, I guess it's the golden key that was stolen. Right, yes, the rabbit nodded. This sounds like a fairy tale, Zatanna swallowed. After listening to the rabbit story, Peter looked around the rooms and asked, what's in these rooms? I don't know, after all, it's called the secret room. The rabbit tilted his head. Since it's called the secret room, I think the secrets inside it will not be easily solved, right? Peter stared at the rabbit suspiciously. You don't know either. I don't know. The rabbit blinked and acted cute. Maybe we can go in and try. Maybe we can find Dad. Zatanna immediately ran to the nearest door impatiently. With a creak, Zatanna pushed the door open and came in. As a result, what she saw when she pushed the door open was a scene of several goblins cooking in the kitchen. The sturdy goblins were cooking boiling soup and seemed to be adding something to it. Seeing the incredible scene, Zatanna immediately retreated as quickly as possible and slammed the door shut with a bang. Leaning against the door with her back, Zatanna opened her arms and breathed deeply. What did you see? Peter asked her curiously. I don't know, it seems to be two goblins, Zatanna said in disbelief. I actually entered the goblins' kitchen, in my house. There are goblins in this world, and they can talk. She felt that her common sense of life was challenged a little. I warned you that this room is no longer familiar to you, Rabbit said depressedly, and isn't this very common in the magic world? I also know there is a talking gorilla, goblin. Peter did not enter the room. Pinching his chin, he fell into deep thought. Since Zatanna can enter the goblin's kitchen, what is there in the other rooms? Burke said that the history of the secret house can be traced back to the beginning of time. So are there other creatures in the room containing mysterious magic? Fantasy creatures, or incredible creatures on the magic side, and humans or historical scenes that have existed? It seems that every time you open a door, it is equivalent to opening a blind box, and you don't know what you will see. He has a strong interest in the secret house. If he can have the right to use this secret house, when the naughty children make mistakes in the future, he can lock them in the secret house. Let naughty kids experience the excitement of opening a blind box. You can either put them in solitary confinement or let naughty kids who made mistakes explore the secrets of the secret house for you, killing two birds with one stone. Burks, who didn't know what Peter was thinking, shook his ears and said to the two of them, we should be trapped in the secret house, Padrick Farm. It was not until the evening that Peter came back. Azu and Star-Lord sat at the dining table, both feeling a little depressed. Azu frowned and looked at the dark night outside the window. Did Dad have an accident? Azu said to himself. But he quickly shook his head again. No, it's impossible for anyone to hurt Dad. Although he said that, Azu soon became uneasy again. He thought of Lucifer who had dealt with him before. If he meets someone who can do magic, Dad may get into some trouble. After all, Dad and I don't know magic. Thinking of this, Azu's uneasiness and anxiety became more and more serious. I have to do something. Thinking of this, Zu immediately turned around and said to Star-Lord, I'm going out for a while. Star-Lord, you stay here. Seeing Zu was about to leave, Star-Lord stood up and said to him, but Dad asked us to wait for him to come back. Although he was also worried about Peter's safety, he thought he should listen to his father and stay on the farm and wait for him to come back. Then you wait foolishly. I won't waste time here. Zu took a deep breath and changed his clothes and shoes as quickly as possible. But do you know where Dad went? I don't know, but I have the ability to fly and supervision. I can always find Dad. Although Star-Lord hoped to use magic to turn Zu into a doll, he didn't want him to get into trouble now, so he reminded him, Dad sent Zatanna home. Regarding Zatanna's address, maybe you can ask those gangsters. After all, they have been investigating Zatanna. Do you know which gang they are from? Star-Lord nodded. I know. I heard when Dad and Chandler were on the phone. Wait. Did you eavesdrop on Dad's conversation? Zu looked at him with a bad look. I just overheard it accidentally, just like your conversation with your father this morning. I also overheard it accidentally, Star-Lord said innocently. After the words fell, the scene was silent for a few seconds. Gradually, the sound of fists clenching came from Azu's two hands. Chapter 127, Azu is online. Standing on the rooftop of a high-rise building in the city, Zu looked down at the city below. Feeling the cold night wind, he glanced at his phone. He had called Peter several times before, but none of them answered. He became more and more anxious, and began to look for the gang headquarters where the other party was located according to the information that Star-Lord told him about the supermarket gunman. Since he didn't know the specific clues, he could only fly around the city and use his super hearing to capture the conversations of these street elements in the city. Although the efficiency was very low, he soon heard the two black men talking about the term Dead Rabbit Gang in their conversation. Dead Rabbit Gang is the gang where the supermarket gunman belongs. Zhu immediately followed the footsteps of the two black men. At the same time, at the headquarters of the Dead Rabbit Gang, the dim light shone through the broken window into a gray area, capturing the dust vortex and decayed trivialities under the beam, and then ended on Lauren Paul's face. She was only 18 years old and was tied to a table. The leather pad under her body was broken and bit her naked back, thighs and buttocks tightly. Smells mixed together, sweat, urine, rust, all intertwined into a pungent chemical stench. Lauren was gagged with barbed wire, and the wound extended all the way to her head. From front to back, the rusty barbs poked into the corners of the girl's mouth. The wire nailed her scalp to the table. Her tongue and lips were dry and cracked. It seemed that she had been here for a long time. The room was filled with a dead smell. The surrounding walls were blackened and charred by smoke, and the wallpaper was blistered like skin that had been soaked in water for a long time. The ceiling was pulled down everywhere, and knobs and wiring tubes were dangling and hanging, supported by drooping undamaged insulation bundles, looking like gray clouds being dragged down by heavy rain. Lauren was desperate. She never thought that her boyfriend, the boyfriend with no bottom line, would sell her to the gang to pay off his debts. She had suffered too much torture since she was kidnapped here, and she could even imagine her next fate. Killed, or sold for organs, or sold? With a creak, the iron door opened and a man walked out from the shadows. Lauren, whose mouth was blocked, sobbed and sobbed. The cracked corners of her mouth were scabby, and fresh blood flowed out and dried. "You are in good spirits," the man licked the corner of his mouth, looked Lauren up and down and said, "Your boyfriend owes us a lot of money. In order to recover the loss, I'm sorry, we can only let you suffer a little." The tall and strong man made a sound of tisk-tisk. "You are really good looking, but it's a pity for this body." The man who made a regretful sound made Lauren even more scared. She made a humming sound and struggled desperately. Lauren's actions aroused the man's evil desire. He licked his lips with a perverted expression, took off his clothes and walked directly towards Lauren. Even though the environment here was bad and Lauren had been tortured beyond recognition, he couldn't help but want to taste her taste. Just as the man was about to continue, he suddenly heard a dull sound from outside. He was a little confused and turned around and walked outside. As a result, as soon as he walked out of the room, the tall and strong man's neck was grabbed by a small hand. Then his vision turned upside down, and he felt that he was thrown heavily to the ground by the other party. Feeling the severe pain all over his body, the man who seemed to have broken his cervical vertebrae screamed in pain. He looked at the guy who threw him to the ground with blurred vision, and was horrified. The other party was actually a young boy? Azu glanced at the guy who was lying on the ground and groaning, and looked away with some disgust. Seeing that their boss was beaten, the other members in the room hurried forward. In just a moment, the sound of several bones being broken was heard, and several people were easily knocked to the ground by Azu. The screams of pain continued in the cramped and dirty room. Azu asked coldly, "Are you from the Dead Rabbit Gang? Who is the boss?" The tall and strong man staggered to his feet and looked at Azu with disbelief. For a moment, he even forgot the pain in his body. He never thought that this boy would have such terrifying strength. Several people on his side didn't see anything at all, and were knocked to the ground and unable to move. "This is not a human at all, but a devil, right?" "We are me. I am the boss. Who are you?" the tall and strong man asked with a heavy breath. Zhu frowned and asked straight to the point, "Do you know Zatanna Zatara?" Hearing this name, the boss's eyelids jumped. "If you don't tell the truth, you will all be killed by me." Zhu has already seen the tortured girl lying in the other room. He has no courtesy to this group of villains. The boss felt the untouchable aura emanating from Zhu, and finally nodded. Yes, I know her. So you also sent people to kill her?" "Yes, no," the boss explained tremblingly. "We have no hatred with her. It was a woman named Witch Queen who asked us to do this. If we don't find her, she will kill us all." Witch Queen. Hearing this name, Zhu frowned slightly. He didn't know what happened last night, but he just felt that the guy with this name must not be a good person. Zhu thought for a moment and continued to ask, "Did you attack Zatanna today?" "No, we didn't. After the failure in the supermarket that day, we didn't find her." The boss immediately denied it. Seeing that the other party didn't seem to be lying, Azu fell into deep thought. This group of people will definitely not pose any threat to my father. It is very likely that it is this woman called the Witch Queen. Thinking of this, he asked the other party, "How did you contact the Witch Queen? We have never contacted her." "It was that terrible woman who contacted us directly," the gang leader swallowed nervously and explained to him. "Okay, then tell me Zatanna's address." Azu decided to go to Zatanna's house to take a look. After getting Zatanna's address, Azu's eyes flashed red and looked at the boss's lower body. Zilla, the heat vision emitted a strong pressure, piercing through the air and shooting towards the other party's lower body. Sizzle, the half-naked gang leader immediately felt a pain in his lower body and screamed in pain. The heat vision shot by Azu directly penetrated his crotch and shot a small hole. Black dirty blood instantly shot out of the hole. Lauren, who was tied to the bed on the other side, was shocked to see the scene in front of her. She looked through the small hole and seemed to vaguely see Azu with the help of the dim light. Then, with a thump, the man who had raped her fell to the ground with a scream. Although she felt a little nauseous about the scene in front of her, she suddenly felt relieved. Azu's burning bird action made the other gang members present feel cold in their crotches. Even if they were not personally experienced, they could feel the pain of their boss. After Azu used thermal vision to directly penetrate the opponent, he turned around and prepared to leave. But the moment he left, he suddenly thought of Peter's idea of cutting the grass and eradicating the roots before. Okay, Azu took a deep breath and shot thermal vision in his eyes. Zizzy, the other members of the Dead Rabbit gang suddenly felt a pain in their chests, and then they knelt on the ground and lost consciousness. After dealing with the members of the Dead Rabbit gang, Azu immediately activated super speed and left the scene. Lauren didn't dare to breathe until the scene was completely quiet. She moved her hands and feet, but unexpectedly found that the iron ribbon tied to her had been melted by something. Staggering, she stood up and walked towards the living room. The pungent smell of blood entered her nose, making her feel like vomiting. Looking down at her feet, the man who was about to use force on her was trembling slightly, and it seemed that he was still breathing. She took a deep breath, and with a fierce heart, she picked up the broom next to her and hit the other's head. Bang! In the secret house, Zatanna jumped down from the stairs and shouted to Peter, "Mr. Padrick, I have no strength left. We walk down from upstairs, and the stairs are endless. We can't finish them. I can't do it anymore." Peter looked at the exhausted girl and shrugged his shoulders. "If you feel tired, I can carry you up." When Zatanna heard that Peter was going to carry her, her face immediately turned red. No, I'm actually fine." Cough cough. After coughing, Zatanna looked at the rabbit with a vague look. "Burks, how many steps are there in this place? If I have a wand, I can go up with magic. We search from the top floor down, floor by floor. Whether we use a wand or a spell book, magic will hardly work." Zatanna exhaled. "The spell said backwards won't work? I think it's already difficult." The rabbit turned around on the stairs and said, "There are even more difficult ones, such as the blood curse." Hearing the other party talking about a blood curse, Zatanna was surprised. "Wait, there are really more difficult ones?" "Of course, I'm an old puka. I've seen the world." "Kid?" Zatanna asked curiously. "How old?" "Do you know King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table?" "Of course. Before I convinced them, they used a triangular table for meetings, and I convinced them to use a round table." "You mean, the Knights of the Round Table were born because of you?" "Almost," the rabbit said proudly. After talking to Rabbit about the Knights of the Round Table for a while, Zatanna asked Peter, "Mr. Padrick, don't you have super speed? Have you finished exploring the secret room?" "No." Peter shook his head and said. "Why?" "Because it's like this," Peter said as he activated his super speed and moved forward. But the next second he appeared behind her. "I'm here, Zatanna. How did you appear behind me?" "As you can see, Zatanna, I'm going in circles." "No." Hearing Peter's words, Zatanna hugged her head. She didn't want to climb the stairs at all now. As a result, she blurted out, "End of stairs." The next second, after she shouted the irony, the stairs disappeared. Zatanna was stunned for a second, and suddenly felt her body falling down. Zatanna screamed, thinking that she would definitely fall badly this time, but she was hugged with a bang. Apostrophe. Chapter 128, The Great Magician of the Dark Justice League is a Fool? Mr. Papadrick. Zatanna was held in Peter's arms, her lips stammered as she spoke, her face instantly turning red. Peter's free hand held the rabbit Burke's ear. With a bang, Peter landed safely on the ground with the rabbit and Zatanna. "I told you not to use magic here," Burks, who was almost frightened after experiencing a free fall, complained to Zatanna. "If it wasn't for Mr. Papadrick, you almost made me fall into a meat pie. I'm sorry, I did it in a rush." Zatanna apologized to the rabbit with a guilty conscience. Peter put her down. "It seems that you can't control your magic well, Zatanna. Remember not to make me disappear when you get angry next time." He was really afraid of this kind of naughty child who could do magic, who would make himself feel like heaven and death by just reciting a spell when he got angry. "No, of course not." Hearing Peter's teasing, Zatanna blushed and explained, "I am usually very stable." As she spoke, she cast her eyes on the surrounding environment. In front of a few people, there was a dark red door. "There is another door here. Maybe we can search one room at a time," Zatanna put forward her own opinion. Burks shook his head and said to Zatanna, "I have to remind you, Zatanna, if you find the black door, don't open it anyway." "Black door?" Zatanna asked the other party in confusion. "What is the black door?" "The realm of the dead is the last exit here," Zatanna continued to ask. "Is it hell inside?" "Almost. Anyway, I know that anyone who enters the black door will never come out again, but sometimes, it is said that your answer can be found." Rabbit shook his ears and replied to Zatanna. "Anyway, there is no other way." Zatanna looked around. There was only one room here, so she could only try. Even if she encountered the goblin kitchen again, with Peter there, she believed that the goblins could not threaten her safety. Mustering up the courage to move forward, Zatanna pushed the door open with a creak and entered the room. Suddenly, what caught her eyes was a pile of books. Countless bookshelves lined up side by side were full of books, and even the ground was piled with thick books and papers. Looking at everything in front of her, Zatanna swallowed her saliva. "Is this the world of books? My father is a complete nerd, and this place is very suitable for him," she was complaining when a gust of wind whistled in the next second. With a rumbling sound, a figure like a huge mountain suddenly appeared in front of several people. Those who guessed the riddle wrong, don't even think about moving forward. The monster made a thunderous sound. Zatanna and the rabbit, who were startled, quickly took a step back. The monster has a sphinx body and a human face, with wings on its back, and it makes a thunderous sound when it breathes. Although the monster is huge and looks terrifying, it is not made of flesh and blood, but of origami. It looks like a monster made of paper. "It's the Sphinx." Burks looked at the paper monster in front of him and said in shock, "Sphinxes can make riddles. This is their duty." "Riddles?" Zatanna stopped her steps and looked at the Sphinx. "He can make riddles." The Sphinx made a rumbling sound. "If you can guess it right, you will get a favor." "Favor? Does it mean a benefit?" Zatanna immediately became interested. "We guessed it right. Can you let us leave here? By the way, can you tell me where my father is?" "Guess the riddle first." The Sphinx said the riddle to the three people. "My spine is stiff. My torso is pale, but I always have a story to tell. Be careful. Guessing wrong is a big taboo." After hearing the riddle, Zatanna looked at Peter for help. She is not very good at guessing riddles. Burks thought about it, but couldn't think of an answer for a while. "Got it." Zatanna suddenly had an idea, and she thought of an answer. "I guess the answer is a chattering zombie." The zombie has a stiff spine and a pale torso, which fits the description. Before Zatanna could finish, the Sphinx made a rumbling sound. "Anyone who guesses wrong will be severely punished." Then he swung his palm towards Zatanna. At the critical moment, Peter moved to Zatanna's side and hugged her away. With a bang, the ground where Zatanna was standing was hid and a hole appeared, and wood chips flew everywhere. Although it was a monster made of paper, its strength and speed were extraordinary. Without waiting for the Sphinx to attack, Peter reached out to it. "Wait. I know the answer." Hearing Peter say that he knew the answer, Sphinx stopped moving and looked down at him. "Either guess it right or be punished." Peter glanced at the book on the ground and said, "My spine is stiff and my torso is pale, but I always have stories to tell." "Books are the answer to the riddle." "Guessed it right," Sphinx made a loud voice. "That's amazing, Mr. Patrick," Zatanna shouted excitedly. Peter looked at her silently. "Is this the famous future great magician who founded the Dark Justice League? Even such a child's riddle can be guessed wrong." He suspected that the owner of this secret house was also a child, otherwise there would be such a monster that guessed riddles. Not knowing that Peter was complaining about herself, Zatanna asked Sphinx excitedly, "Since we guessed it right, can you take us out of here?" "Sure." Sphinx made a rumbling sound and led the way for the few people with heavy steps. The other party's huge body jumped out of the door and flew upstairs. Peter held Zatanna and the rabbit and followed closely behind. Soon the Sphinx brought the three people to an open area and said to them, "There are several doors in front of you. You only need to choose one to leave. I hope you choose the right one." After that, the Sphinx flapped its wings and left. Looking at the doors of different shapes in front of her, Zatanna scratched her head in trouble. Each room is more terrifying than the previous one. "To be honest, I don't want to go in now." Peter looked at the doors in front of him and was about to speak when he heard a whistling sound of wind and snow. Then a piercing coldness came. "We meet again, Zatanna and Peter Patrick." The familiar voice of the Witch Queen sounded behind the two. Peter turned around and saw the Witch Queen in a white windbreaker. Seeing the Witch Queen appear, Zatanna was stunned. "I thought it would take you some time to find this place, but I didn't expect you to be so fast." The Witch Queen smiled and looked at the few people and said, "You?" Zatanna looked at her angrily. "What do you want?" "My purpose. Haven't you always been very clear? Just tell me the secret magic in this house, and we can stop interfering with each other. I will let you go, and I can even help you find your father." Zatanna's eyes lit up when she heard that she could help her find her father. But she quickly shook her head and said, "No, I don't want to find him now. Because he deceived me. He made me think my mother was dead." Hearing Zatanna say this, the Witch Queen choked. "Hey, I say, have you forgotten me?" Peter coughed, stood up unhappily, and asked the Witch Queen. "No, of course I won't forget you, Mr. Patrick." The Witch Queen cast her eyes on Peter. "You are powerful and full of mystery, but you don't understand magic. You don't understand the mystery of magic, and you don't know what position I hold in the magic world." "Really?" Peter looked at the confident Witch Queen and said to her, "I am not interested in your position in the magic world, but, didn't you get the key here? Why can't you uncover the secret of the secret house?" When asked by Peter, the Witch Queen's face was a little ugly. "The key only allowed me to enter here. Even if I got the key, this damn secret house still refused to share the secret with me." At this point, she changed the subject and looked at Zatanna with resentful eyes. "You must know its secret, tell me." "Zatanna," Peter interrupted her before she finished speaking. "Do you know why it can't know the secret? Because you look too scary now. It may be scared by you." Before he finished speaking, Peter instantly activated his super speed and moved towards the other party. With a bang, the witch's body was knocked out and hit the ground with a deafening sound. Taking advantage of the moment when the opponent fell to the ground, Peter moved forward again, ready to completely deal with the opponent. But the moment he took a step, he felt that the space around him was solidified. An invisible magic force acted on his body. At the same time, Zatanna and Burks at the scene were also instantly controlled by this magic. The confused rabbit had not yet reacted, and was turned into a doll with a puff. As the strong spatial pressure swept across, the complex and crisscrossing magic circles on the ground also appeared. The Witch Queen stood up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and looked at Peter coldly. "I am the Witch Queen, the ruler of the entire souled book hell. Do you think my magic is comparable to that of a half-baked magician like Zatanna? I have already set up a magic circle here." As she said, she pointed her wand at Peter, who was fixed in space. "I will turn you into a doll as my permanent collection." With a humming sound of energy, the Witch Queen's body instantly burst out with endless and gorgeous magic energy. Facing the Witch Queen's transformation magic, Peter immediately activated his own divine power. In an instant, the divine power was like a protective shield, instantly covering his body. Looking at the magical energy in front of him that seemed to be destroying the world, he could only place his hope on this divine power that had defeated Lucifer. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129, Another World, Azu's Lies. Seeing this, the Witch Queen's face became more and more ugly. She found that Peter's glowing body actually blocked the detection and influence of her magic. The Witch Queen could clearly feel that her transformation spell had a momentary delay. On the other side, Peter clenched his fists, and after realizing that the opponent's magic was affected by the energy of the gods, he felt relieved. It seems that the power of the gods seems to have some restraining effect on magic. Although it is impossible to completely ignore magic, it is equivalent to adding magic resistance to oneself, so that the Witch Queen's magic will not be unbridled. Enduring the restraint of space on his body, He slowly raised his head and saw that the Sphinx that had left in the distance suddenly returned. After forcibly breaking free from the Witch Queen's magic space control, he instantly moved to Zatanna's side and pushed her out violently. Zatanna, who was in pain, did not expect Peter to push her out. Before she could react on the ground, her body was grabbed by a mouth. The origami-made Sphinx held Zatanna in its mouth and left the scene at lightning speed and jumped out of the window. Watching Peter push her out and stay at the scene to fight alone, Zatanna's eyes were full of disbelief. Crash! The glass shattered, and the Sphinx jumped into the air with Zatanna in its mouth. The sky suddenly rained heavily, accompanied by lightning and thunder. The Sphinx flew forward for a while, and its speed gradually slowed down, and finally stopped and lay on the ground. "Child, I believe you will choose the right door and find the truth in the end," the Sphinx said to her in a gradually decreasing voice. "What door?" "Wait a minute." Zatanna got off the Sphinx and looked at the melting Sphinx in shock. "You are disintegrating, Sphinx." Watching the paper Sphinx gradually melt, Zatanna reached out her hand sadly, trying to catch it. "Child, it looks strong, but it is not. Everything is like this. Sometimes, the paper Sphinx cannot defeat the raindrops." The Sphinx spoke in a voice that became smaller and smaller. "Sometimes, witches cannot defeat little girls." As the last sentence was spoken, the body of the Sphinx was completely dissolved by the rain. Zatanna knelt on the ground, stretched out her hand, caught a piece of paper that fell from the Sphinx's body, and tears flowed instantly. No, Uncle Patrick is still fighting, and Burks has to wait for me to rescue him. I can't cry here." Zatanna immediately stood up and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. The Sphinx said, "I will open the right door, I have to continue." Although she was soaked by the rain and felt uncomfortable everywhere in her body, she still tried to stand up and continue to move forward. After walking for an unknown period of time, Zatanna suddenly came to a black door. Thinking of what Burks had said about the realm of the dead, sometimes there are answers. Zatanna hesitated a little, not knowing whether she should take this risk. But when she thought of Peter's danger for her, she gritted her teeth, pushed open the door and stepped in. Mr. Patrick is not afraid of death, and neither should she. Squeak! The door was pushed open, and Zoo hesitated at the door. After getting the address of Zatanna's house from the Dead Rabbit Gang, he immediately rushed here. After pushing the door open and entering, what she saw was the incredible layout of the room in front of her. Countless stairs extended in all directions, leading to different doors. After hesitating for a moment, Azu, who didn't know the situation, decided to go into a room at random to see what was going on. He pushed open the door and entered the room. The inside of the room was pitch black, without any light. Click, then there was a dazzling light. Azu was surprised to find that a mirror appeared in front of him. A scene was playing out in the mirror. Reporters pressed the shutter to take pictures of a blonde man. The other party was wearing the same uniform as him, with his hair combed back into a big back, and a smile similar to his own on the corner of his mouth. Azu looked at the other party in shock. Although the other party was much older than himself, Azu immediately recognized that this was himself. No, this might be another self in the dream. In the mirror, it seemed that an interview was going on. The reporter said to the blonde man, "First of all, Homelander, congratulations on being named Time Magazine's Superhero of the Year. How does it feel to receive such an honor? Don't get me wrong, your magazine is great and I'm certainly honored, but let's put it this way, being in a magazine is not what motivates me to get up in the morning. Think about it, if I don't save people, who will? Without me, the world will burn down. Literally, there will be blood and fire everywhere." The reporter nodded and continued, "As such an influential person, what do you hope people get from this honor? What do you hope to inspire from the bottom of people's hearts?" Homelander, smiling like a spring breeze, replied, "I just hope to get a little respect. You know, there has been a lot of hatred and discrimination against superheroes lately, as well as unfounded legal charges. I hope this will make people stop and think about the sacrifices we have made for them, and maybe they will be inspired to become heroes with their own meager strength." What do you like to do for fun? How does America's greatest superhero decompress? Does he have days off? Azu replied, "No, terrorists and bank robbers don't rest, so why should I? I like to stop by Coney Island on my way home to eat those incredible hot dogs, pure American style. I also like the rich and creamy milkshakes." The reporter continued, "Tell me about your family, Homelander." Homelander took a deep breath and said, "I love my family. You know, I grew up on a farm with my father. I am his only son. My childhood was great. Do you know what my first birthday present was? Homelander said with a smile on his face. It was a superhero uniform, exactly the same as the one I'm wearing now. And my dad took me to the amusement park and the museum. At that time, there was a high school band performance at the amusement park at 6 o'clock in the evening, and there was also a band called Happy Man Barbershop. I was impressed. We also went to the museum, which was filled with a collection of old Mike, a local librarian and amateur historian. It included restaurant menus from the 1890s, lumberjacks' masts, axes and hooks from the 1980s, and toys from the 1920s. It was very cool. I loved my dad, listening to the other self in the mirror, or the self in another world talking, as he was shocked. Isn't this his own experience? This guy is definitely lying. Azu immediately judged that the other person was lying by the micro-expressions on his face. But the other person's happy expression was definitely not fake. Why did he know his experience? Just when Azu was in a mess, the motherland in the mirror was still talking. But I don't like birthdays, the reporter asked him. Why? Because it means that my father is 1 year older. He said, only when you grow up, you will find that every birthday is actually like a turnstile. It takes you further and further, deeper and deeper. Suddenly one day, birthdays become irrelevant and completely become inevitable. At this point, the motherland being interviewed looked out the window with a complicated expression. Hearing this, Azu was shocked. He quickly thought of the dreams he often had. He often dreamed of being tortured in the laboratory, surrounded by coldness and loneliness. Could it be that those were not dreams, but what the other self in the mirror had experienced? Since I can dream about him, will he also dream about me and know my experience? Azu took a step back because of this absurd and incredible idea. What kind of existence is this room? Why did I see these things? At this time, the interview in the mirror has come to an end. Homelander said to the reporter in a daze, sometimes, I often dream of a black door in my dreams. As long as I open this door, I can see my father. Sometimes I feel close to him, and sometimes I feel far away from him. A world away, squeak. On the other side, Zatanna finally mustered up the courage to push open the black door. The room was pitch black and nothing could be seen. The silence seemed to isolate everything in the world. Zatanna felt a boundless darkness and suddenly remembered a song her father sang to her. There is a house on a certain street, and there is a door in the house. We will all enter this door eventually, but don't enter too early. What is waiting for what in the darkness? Loneliness? Cold? Merciless darkness? No, what is waiting there is. In order to encourage herself, Zatanna sang the song her father taught her. When she sang the last sentence, a light suddenly lit up. A familiar yet unfamiliar voice continued her singing, love. Then Zatanna's mother appeared in front of her with a smile in a white dress. Mother, Zatanna looked at the other person in disbelief. This was the glamorous woman on the poster, and gradually overlapped with a mother in her memory. Zatanna, whose eyes were instantly filled with tears, rushed over. Hugging her mother, Zatanna burst into tears. There was only one sofa in the room. Zatanna cried for a while, then wiped her tears and asked her mother, Mom, am I dead? No, you're not. Only the head of the secret room can step into this black door alive. Zatanna asked doubtfully, but Burke said that my father is the head of the secret room. Her mother explained to her, the house will choose its own head. It chose you when you were very young. In order to protect you, we let everyone think that your father is the head, including Burks. Chapter 130, The Magic of Love. Zatanna enters the realm of God. Then I fell ill and passed away. Your father wrote to me to ease his sorrow. The mother smiled and said to her, imagine how surprised he was when I wrote back to him. For many years, we have been exchanging letters from under the Black Gate. This is the Black Gate, the kingdom of the dead. Originally, I would not be able to see you again after my death, but this is the magic of the secret room. In each room, you can see incredible things and peek into the biggest secrets in your heart. She stroked Zatanna's hair and said, sometimes, it can even ignore space and time and let you see your biggest secrets. I should apologize to you, Zatanna. We have hidden so many secrets from you, but parents always make mistakes, even in the afterlife. Zatanna did not resent her. She was extremely excited and told her mother what happened outside. After listening, the mother tidied Zatanna's hair. You did a good job, but now you have to go. Go, someone needs you. Go and embark on your own path. But I'm so scared, Mom, can I really do it? Zatanna showed her inner weakness to her mother. She grabbed her mother's hand and said, I acted very brave, but I'm not. I'm very scared, Mom. This is my secret. Only those who don't tell secrets to others will be hurt by secrets, even in a house full of secrets. The mother smiled and said to her, as for the Witch Queen, she leaned close to Zatanna's ear and whispered a few words. After listening to the magic her mother taught her, Zatanna asked her mother half-believingly, will this really work? Mom, you are much stronger than you think, Zatanna. Your true self has powerful magic. Since the house has chosen you as the head, it proves that you are no worse than anyone else. After hearing her mother's encouragement, Zatanna nodded heavily. After hugging her mother, Zatanna prepared to leave. But after taking 2 steps, she suddenly remembered something and turned to her mother and asked, Mom, is that okay? I've been looking for him, but there's no news about him. He's okay, but what will happen in the future, Zatanna? That's up to you to create. Your journey is far from over. Zatanna looked at her mother's smile and seemed to understand something. On the other side, Peter used his arms to hold the ice spear condensed in the air. With a clear sound, the shattered ice spear shattered and fell to the ground. How long will you use this little trick? Peter condensed the energy of the gods with his hands. Because of the influence of space and the constant invasion of the icy breath, he couldn't make room for the energy of the gods for a while. What on earth are you? The Witch Queen asked in disbelief. She used various magic bombardments in turn, and with a magic array set up in advance, she never thought that she couldn't take down the opponent in a short time. You know, the man in front of her is a guy who doesn't know magic at all. Taking a deep breath, the Witch Queen's eyes glowed with a dark cold light. I am the most outstanding magician in Lingbu Town, and I have never seen anyone like you. Lingbu Town, Witch Town, located in the outermost layer of hell, was built by the descendants of the Puritan magicians in Roanoke. The witch boy Clarion came from here. As you can see, I am just an ordinary human. I can't say I am stubborn, but I don't want to die young. Peter stopped and replied to her. Ordinary human, the Witch Queen snorted coldly. I have never seen an ordinary human like you. Compared with those guys in Olympus, you are not much worse, but, she paused for a moment, suppressed her anger and said, you will fail in the end, and the secret will belong to me. If necessary, I will destroy this place and leave only the foundation. No, you won't. As soon as she finished speaking, Zatanna's voice came from behind her. Zatanna, wearing a tall hat, slowly walked over. The Witch Queen looked at Zatanna, who suddenly appeared in astonishment, wondering why the other party dared to appear in front of her. How dare you come back? The Witch Queen looked at her in disbelief. I came here to perform a magic trick for you. What magic trick? Zatanna took off her hat. I will show you the head of magic. The Witch Queen looked at her suspiciously. How are you going to do it? The last head you are looking for is me. Zatanna spread her hands with a smile on her face. How is it? How about this magic trick? Hearing Zatanna admit that she was the head, the Witch Queen was stunned. How could it be? She would never believe that Zatanna was the head. You are right. My parents did share the secret magic with me, but I never realized it. Zatanna took a deep breath and said to the stunned Witch Queen, the secret is, they love me. You know what love is, right? Zatanna asked the other party a mental attack. The secret of magic is love. This is what my parents tried to tell me. With love, all secrets can be solved. You are lying. Before Zatanna could finish, the Witch Queen pointed her cane at Zatanna angrily. Do you think you understand my heart? You are just a guy who hasn't grown up yet, and you dare to teach me what love is. As she spoke, the Witch Queen used the ice that covered the sky and the sun to blast Zatanna. Facing the terrifying magic, Zatanna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Recalling the irony magic her mother taught her, which gave her strong emotions and strength, Zatanna's body burst out with a powerful magical power. Water glue is you, leather rubber is me, and I will rebound from the upper body. What can you say? Facing the Witch Queen, who gritted her teeth and released magic, Zatanna released the magic her mother taught her. You are sticking to the upper body. As Zatanna recited the magic, a vast magical aura burst out around her body, and immediately formed a mirror-like barrier on the surface of her body. The next moment, the magic released by the Witch Queen hit the mirror in front of Zatanna, and then bounced back instantly. Caught off guard, the Witch Queen was instantly hit by the magic she released, and the ice directly wrapped to her. Peter, who was eating melons happily on the other side, was stunned when he saw the Witch Queen frozen in ice. Is it solved? Looking at Zatanna, who was breathing heavily, and then looking at the Witch Queen, whose expression was lifelike after being frozen, Peter fell into deep thought. Is the magic of love really so powerful? Mr. Padrick, I won, he was thinking, and Zatanna, who had calmed down for a second, rushed up to him excitedly. I did it. I really did it. Yes, you did it. Peter coughed, felt the other party's excitement, patted her on the shoulder, and signaled her to calm down. Zatanna, who was in a good mood, looked at the Witch Queen whose expression was lifelike after being frozen, and felt a sense of accomplishment. Peter looked at the Witch Queen and asked Zatanna, what should we do with her? She will be frozen in there forever. She will hurt people anyway. Zatanna left Peter's arms and said a little embarrassedly, let her stay sealed like this. A few minutes later, as Zatanna got the key and put the magic house back to sleep, everything returned to normal. Zuko blinked and scratched his head in confusion. He didn't understand why the mirror in front of him suddenly disappeared and the scene in front of him turned into a kitchen. Seeing that there seemed to be no special tableware in the kitchen, he pushed the door open and walked out in confusion. As soon as he walked out, he saw Rabbit hopping over. Zuko, who recognized this as Zatanna's rabbit, squatted down. John, a familiar voice sounded from behind. Zuko turned around excitedly and saw Peter standing with Zatanna. Dad, Zuko walked over excitedly. Dad, I finally found you. Peter looked at Zuko in surprise. This kid came to find him on purpose? Peter asked him, when did you come here? John, just now, Dad. Zuko hesitated for a moment and did not tell Peter what he had just seen. He did not want Peter to know about himself in another world. Otherwise, he would always feel that he would lose something. Peter nodded. Let's leave here first. He looked at his watch, and the time was already 12:30 in the morning. It was really a long night. The next day, early in the morning, Zatanna rubbed her eyes and went downstairs. Peter was placing fried eggs on the dining table, and Burks next to him was shaking his ears to smell the aroma of the food. Zatanna, who felt that this scene was somewhat familiar, took a deep breath and walked to the dining table. Grabbing the rabbit's ears and putting it under the dining table, Zatanna sat down and greeted Peter. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Zatanna. Star-Lord and Zoo haven't gotten up yet, still sleeping. After taking a bite of toast, Zatanna supported her chin with one hand, blinked, and said to Peter, Sir, can I ask you a question? What? Why did you push me away last night? Peter was stunned for a moment, and after organizing his words, he said, because I think it would be a burden if you were there. Burden? Zatanna was not very satisfied with the answer, but laughed again after a moment. I guessed that you would answer like this, sir, but I still want to thank you, Zatanna said sincerely. If it weren't for you, sir, I might never grow up, and never understand the essence of magic. As she spoke, she took out a golden key. Sir, I will continue my journey to find my father. I hope you can keep this key for me. Peter looked at the key in the other's hand and asked uncertainly, you said you wanted me to keep it? Yes, with a key, you are half the owner of the secret house. Except for the black door, you can enter any room and wake it up at any time. Why let me keep it? Because you guessed the Sphinx's riddle correctly. Chapter 131 Azu's Philosophy of Love. Just because I guessed the riddle of the Sphinx, yes, it's just like the gods and fate have destined it. Zatanna picked up the rabbit. It's destined that you will guess the answer. It's destined that we will meet the Witch Queen. It's destined that the Sphinx will save me, maybe, sir. It's destined that you will have a connection with the secret house. Peter looked at the key in his hand. Just like you said, maybe it's the arrangement of the gods and fate. But, Zatanna, it's too precious. Although he was very interested in the secret house, he also knew that this thing was not an ordinary thing. Sir, are you afraid that you can't keep it well? Zatanna deliberately pretended to be puzzled and asked. You are not good at poor provocation, Zatanna. Peter put away the key. Okay, I'll take it. Do you still want to continue your career as a magician? Peter asked the other party after putting away the key. Yes, I will continue to look for my father, return to the magic stage, return to the storm, and return to the other side of the dark night. Storm? Dark night. Peter shrugged and said to her, it sounds like you are about to step into a dangerous stage. Zatanna blinked. It's a quote. These two sentences are from Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Without waiting for Peter to speak, she proudly read out Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Let this be our farewell, bird or demon. I stood up and shouted, go back to your storm. Go back to the other side of your dark night. Don't leave your black feathers as a symbol of your soul's lies. Leave me complete loneliness. Let your mouth leave my heart. Let your body leave my room. I am now the crow in Edgar Allan Poe, and my soul has escaped from the shadows floating on the floor." Zatanna stroked the rabbit's long ears and said with a sigh, "I am leaving the room now and flying back to the storm." "Really?" Peter pinched his chin and fell into deep thought. After a moment, he looked up and asked her, "Little Za, can you tell me something?" "What? Since you like reading so much, why did you guess the riddle about books wrong?" Zatanna, she felt that her heart was hit hard. After joking with Zatanna, Peter put a bank card on the table. "Okay, I won't joke with you anymore. There is some money in this bank card. Maybe you will need it on the road." Since the other party gave him the right to use the secret house, he was not stingy in helping the other party financially. Seeing the bank card pushed by Peter, Zatanna was a little at a loss. "No, I can't take it. I'm not short of money." In fact, she didn't have much money to use. For a girl on the road, I think the most important thing besides safety is money. Take it. For me, money is the least valuable thing. Zatanna looked at Peter's expression and was touched. She slowly exhaled, put away the bank card and held it in her hand. Thank you, Uncle Patrick." She was a little excited and stood up and gave Peter a hug. "I will always remember this story, always remember it." On the other side, Azu hid at the corner of the stairs on the second floor and overheard the conversation between Peter and Zatanna. He was not very interested in whether Zatanna left or stayed. He was interested in the key that she left for her father. With that key, he could enter the mysterious house and explore the scene he saw last night again. Thinking of this, his eyes sparkled. But when he thought about the key in his father's hand, how could he take it out secretly and safely without being discovered? Thinking of this, his face immediately turned bitter. No, he soon realized that he had forgotten another very important thing. Dad actually gave money to Zatanna? That was his future money. His mood suddenly became bad, and he even had an idea to pretend to be a robber and snatch back the money his father gave to Zatanna. But he soon realized that this behavior was very risky. Not to mention that Zatanna was a magician. If this matter was known by his father, he would definitely be punished. Alice, Azu sighed heavily. Dad was soft-hearted. Whether it was Zatanna or Bruce, as long as they showed a little pity, Dad would be fooled. These guys without parents, each of them is not easy to deal with. At noon, Peter sent Zatanna away and returned to the farm. Star-Lord was not very happy about the magician's departure. He had not learned a few magic tricks from the other party, and the other party left, which made him feel very sorry. "Dad, is Zatanna really gone?" "Yes, she will continue her magic performance career, and she is destined not to stay in one place for too long." Peter used a fork to cut the sausage and replied, "Birds will not stop flying." Star-Lord took a bite of pancake. His mouth was stuffed, and he asked Peter vaguely, "Is Zatanna a bird?" "Yes, she is a crow," Peter asked Star-Lord casually. Crow. Star-Lord thought about Zatanna's image. The other party always wore black clothes and a black tall hat. He nodded. "Yes, she does look a bit like a crow that can do magic." "What's wrong? Is there something on your mind, John?" Seeing that Zu looked absent-minded, Peter asked him, "Are you not eating well?" "No, it's not." Zu quickly denied it. He was depressed because Peter gave the bank card to Zatanna, but he would never say such a thing. He thought about it and quickly found a reason. "I'm just worried about Clark's situation." "What happened to Clark?" Peter asked curiously. "Clark accidentally set the movie screen on fire in biology class yesterday," Zu told Clark's embarrassing story. "You didn't tell me about this, John. What happened?" Zu organized his words and said, "I don't know, it was just a normal biology class. Clark sat at the back, and then the movie screen was inexplicably set on fire. After that, everyone ran out of the classroom." After listening, Peter asked Zu, "Was there anything unusual in the biology class?" "I don't know." Zu thought for a while and said, "But Lana was there." Lana. After hearing Zu talking about Lana, Peter had a rough guess in his mind. "Dad, I can tell you a secret," Zu suddenly said mysteriously. "What secret?" He looked at him in surprise. When did Zu become a snitch? "It's Clark." Zu came over and whispered, "Clark has a telescope in the secret fortress of his barn. He likes to secretly use the telescope to spy on Lana at night." "Peter, it's not spying. Maybe Clark likes to look at the stars." Peter coughed and explained for Clark. "He also has a telescope in the barn. This kid doesn't think he likes to spy too, right? Clark doesn't like to look at the stars like his dad does. He has no interest in the stars." Zu vowed, "He only likes Lana, but I don't think Lana likes him." "Do you know what like and dislike are?" Peter was a little surprised. An 11-year-old kid knows this? Of course I do. Zhu said that although he was young, he had a lot of life experience. They say Lana is the school beauty. There are many people who like her, so it's not surprising that Clark is one of them, but Clark doesn't have any outstanding features. I mean, Clark who hides his abilities is like a fool. Dad, if men and women are attracted to each other, there must be outstanding characteristics, right? Peter picked up the juice and gave Zhu's love philosophy a thumbs up in his heart. But since you know so much, why are you so insulated from girls in school? Peter fell into deep thought. Night. Neil Horse Farm. Lana tied Tyson to the stable and stroked the mane on Tyson's back with her hand. Lana, Neil walked out and said to Lana in the stable, "Is Tyson better?" Tyson's mood has been not very good recently, and he invited a veterinarian today. The veterinarian didn't know what disease Tyson had, and only prescribed some common medicines. In order to treat Tyson, Lana has been with her. It's still the same, Lana said with a depressed mood. The veterinarian said that Tyson may have abdominal pain. He is too old, Tyson will be fine. Neil came over to comfort Lana. After the two said a few words, Lana and her aunt returned to the room together. Lana, who was in a low mood, sat on the bed in the room and couldn't fall asleep for a long time. After a while, she got up and got out of bed. Unable to fall asleep, she suddenly opened the locked drawer and wanted to see the relics left by her mother. These relics were given to her by Aunt Neil a few days ago. Her parents died in a car accident during a meteor shower, which was a pain she could never forget. So she didn't dare to open it until today when she finally mustered up the courage. Just as she reached out to the drawer, her finger accidentally touched the metal wire next to the drawer. She groaned when she was stabbed. Looking at the painful area, she found a bright red blood bead on the index finger of her left hand. She sucked the stabbed finger with pain and continued to take out the album and notes in the drawer. Looking through the photos of her parents in the album, Lana's expression became sad. After a few minutes, she closed the album and calmed down, but her eyes accidentally caught a glimpse of a thick and ancient book. Curious, she opened the book, but didn't notice a drop of blood flowing from her finger, which seeped into the pages. At the same time, the mark on her arm also emitted a strange glimmer. Chapter 132, Azu from another world also has a father? The next day. Patrick's farm. Peter left the farm to help out at Kent's farm, and Zu disappeared. Star-Lord was the only one on the farm, watching TV on the sofa in the living room. He wiped the chocolate off his lips and glanced at the book in his hand. Click, click, click. Just as Star-Lord was absorbed in reading Space Track, he suddenly heard footsteps outside. Hearing the sound, Star-Lord hurriedly closed the book as quickly as possible. But just as he tried to hide, a packaging bag broke. The broken packaging bag fell out of the book. In fact, this is not a normal book. In addition to the cover, the pages inside have long been hollowed out, as if hiding a gun or you hide food on the book. The black man who pushed the door in, standing next to Star-Lord at some point, asked him with a surprised face. What? Star-Lord's chubby cheeks flushed. No. No. Oh, no. He looked up in surprise and found that it was his old acquaintance Uncle Jones. Although the other party had not been to the farm for a long time, Star-Lord still recognized him at a glance. Uncle Jones. Star-Lord calmed down quickly. It would be fine as long as his father or Azu didn't see him hiding snacks in his book. Otherwise, if his father caught him, he would definitely be scolded. If Azu found out, this guy would definitely laugh at him. Star-Lord smacked his lips. Neen, Uncle Jones, I'm eating tasty cake. Yeah, I see. What I'm curious about is, why do you eat it in a book? Martian Hunter asked with his hands folded, feeling a little amused. Fructose syrup, Star-Lord has read the random reply. I don't know what that is. Martian Hunter's face showed an interested look. Looking at the other party's expression of catching him, Star-Lord's chubby cheeks puffed up helplessly and spit out heavily. With an embarrassed look on his face, he said, Mr. Jones, I shouldn't eat unhealthy food. It's not good for my body and it's not good for me to lose weight, okay? Martian Manhunter said thoughtfully. Of course, there's a deal here. If you provide me with some information, I won't tell your dad that you secretly hide those foods with super high sugar content in the book. Of course, I won't tell him that you are so crazy. Haha, you actually hollowed out a book to hide food. Martian Manhunter couldn't help laughing when he said this. He didn't expect that children nowadays are so creative. Okay, Uncle Jones, what do you want to know? Star-Lord said frustratedly. Martian Manhunter sat down and asked Star-Lord, has anything big happened in Smallville recently? He hadn't been to the farm for several months, so he wanted to know if anything had happened recently. Let me think about it. Star-Lord put down the book and recalled what had happened before. There have been quite a few guests at the farm recently. Oh, who? Bruce Wayne and Zatanna Zatara. Star-Lord simply told Martian Manhunter what happened between the two at the farm. Martian Manhunter was very familiar with Bruce. He didn't expect that this billionaire from Gotham would choose to travel around the world. Zatanna, he repeated the name in a low voice, as if he had heard it somewhere before. Shaking his head, he temporarily threw Zatanna out of his mind and asked Star-Lord, where's your father? Dad went to Uncle Kent's farm. Star-Lord asked the Martian Manhunter with some expectation. Uncle Jones, you won't leave again this time, right? He missed the food he cooked a little. If there is no other emergency, I will stay here for a few months. He rubbed Star-Lord's hair and said, you eat too much, Star-Lord. In the next few months, I will give you special training. Special training? Star-Lord blinked. Uncle Jones, what are you going to train me? At this point, he suddenly thought of something and said to him excitedly, Uncle Jones, you are an alien, right? A Martian Manhunter hesitated for a moment. He didn't expect Peter to tell Star-Lord his identity so quickly. Yes, I'm a Martian. Great, then can you take me to space? Star-Lord's eyes sparkled. Martian Manhunter asked him doubtfully, why do you want to go to space? Because I want to be the man who conquers the galaxy. In the name of my father, let my voice resound throughout the galaxy, Star-Lord said confidently. Looking at the middle school-like Star-Lord, Martian Manhunter was silent. He suddenly remembered that when he drank with Peter at the Metropolitan Bar last time, Peter once said that he wanted to burn the galaxy and make mankind great again. Now hearing Star-Lord say that he wanted to conquer the galaxy, he began to doubt. Wouldn't this big family really want to conquer the galaxy in the future? Then, by teaching Azu, Clark and Star-Lord combat skills and exploring the potential, would he be laying hidden dangers for the world? After all, these are not ordinary people. Even the harmless little fat man in front of him, he could feel the powerful and terrifying power contained in the other party. No, Peter is not that kind of person. Martian Manhunter comforted himself. In his opinion, these three children are not the kind of people with a tendency to destruction and war. But he soon thought of something more terrible. According to the frequency of Peter picking up a child in recent years, would he really pick up a baby that can cause a galactic war next time? Exhaling, Martian Manhunter decided to put these conjectures aside for now and see how the other party performs later. He asked Star-Lord, where's John? I don't know. He's always been mysterious lately, Star-Lord said nonchalantly. At this time, Zu, who was talked about by the two, had already arrived in the city where Zatanna's hometown was. Standing outside Zatanna's house, he took a deep breath and took out a golden key. In the morning, he sneaked into the room while Peter was out and stole the key. Well, I have to return the key before my father finds out. After whispering to himself, Zu mustered up the courage and pushed open the door of this old house. Zatanna's father's workshop. I just need to use it to unscrew the lock, and I can activate the mystery house, Zu said to himself as he walked towards the workshop. The scene of another world he saw in the mirror before made him unforgettable. There is no doubt that the man facing the endless stream of media is himself, but why did he lie? Everything in the living room was normal, and there seemed to be nothing special. Books and various magic tools filled the entire room. With doubt in his mind, Zu walked on the carpet to the door of the workshop. He took a deep breath, suppressed his nervousness, and inserted the key into the lock. Click, with a crisp sound, the door was opened. Gently pushing the door open, Zu walked into the workshop of Zatanna's father. The workshop was still filled with books and various strange gadgets. After a brief observation of the surrounding environment, he pushed the door open and walked out. The moment he left the workshop, the surrounding environment suddenly changed. The sofa and the vase seemed to be cut by space and firmly stuck to the ceiling, and the stairs leading to various places. Knowing that he had activated the secret room, Zu's heart was beating with excitement. With excitement, he opened a door and walked in like last time. It was still a dark environment, and then a light came on. Zu looked in the mirror, the dim picture. The world in the mirror seemed to be in a warm room. Zu looked at the familiar room and was stunned. Isn't this the layout of his own living room? The sofa, TV, and cabinets are placed exactly the same, and even the positions of the posters on the wall are almost the same. The self in another world, who has combed his hair into an adult look, is sitting on the sofa watching TV. The news on TV seemed to have aroused his dissatisfaction. He pointed at the TV with some disgust and said to the person sitting next to him, "Look, this kind of thing will happen if you are disrespected again and again." Because he couldn't see who was sitting next to the other person, Azu took a step forward curiously. As a result, he was shocked and speechless the next second. The person sitting next to the other self turned out to be his father. How is it possible? Looking at Peter, who was smiling and watching TV on the sofa, Azu fell into a state of doubt about his life. Did he guess wrong? He always thought that what he often dreamed about was his life in another world. According to what he knew, the self in that world grew up completely in a laboratory and had no parents at all. Even if there were parents, how could the other person have the same father as himself? This is totally illogical. No. Azu soon discovered that something was wrong. The father in the mirror world was different from the real one. Not only were there some details in his appearance, but his temperament was also different. The Homelander in the mirror world suddenly spoke up and interrupted his thoughts. He pointed at the TV screen and said to Peter angrily, "The one who should deal with those damn terrorists should be me, not her." His face was filled with resentment and grievance. "I don't understand, how come that bitch who is popular with the media suddenly became the spokesperson for the Seven?" Seeing Homelander's excited expression, Peter reached out and patted his shoulder to comfort him. "No, she's not, you are," Homelander said excitedly. "Yes, Dad, it's not just him, the whole team is the same, they're all holding me back." Taking a deep breath and puffing up his cheeks like a big mushroom, he said a little frustrated, "Dad, you told me to be a human being, not a god, but being a human being is too tiring. I have to pretend to be a star in front of these people and live the way others taught me. All this is too tiring." Chapter 133 Azu, how could there be such a pervert in the world? Hearing this, Azu felt a little sick. This bastard actually copied exactly what his father said to him. If it weren't for the mirror, he would have wanted to melt the other person's head with his thermal vision. In the mirror world, after hearing what Homelander said, Peter comforted him, "You don't need my advice, John. The Super 7 is your team. You trained and supported them." Homelander nodded repeatedly. "That's what I did, Dad. Yes, if they don't respect this, or don't respect you, then maybe you should pull out the weeds and start over." Peter whispered to him to comfort him, "You don't need my advice. You know what to do, John." Homelander exhaled, looked at Peter's encouragement and smiled, and felt much better. He glanced at the picture on the TV, hesitated and said to Peter, "I'm just a little scared, Dad. You know I have lacked a sense of security since I was a child. I need your advice. I know that you will grow up gradually and abandon all fears." Peter held Homelander's hand and encouraged him. But soon Peter's condition became abnormal. With fine sweat on his head, his body swelled and he groaned in pain. At the same time, his body began to change rapidly, his skin suddenly contracted and squirmed, and his overall appearance changed to that of another person. Realizing what was happening, the Homelander immediately turned his head and closed his eyes as quickly as possible, not looking at the other person. He roared in a low voice in anger, damn it, change back to me quickly." The man who had changed from Peter to a bald, wretched middle-aged white man was suddenly at a loss, and hurriedly explained to the Homelander, "I'm sorry, I can only maintain one form for a while, otherwise it will hurt." The Homelander gnashed his teeth, pointed his finger upwards, and the red light in his eyes was looming. With his back to the bald man, he gritted his teeth and said word by word, "Immediately, change back to me, shapeshifter." Now, hearing Azu's stern threat, the shapeshifter had to endure the pain and change back to Peter. "Okay, it's okay, John." The shapeshifter who turned back to Peter breathed slightly and said to Homelander who had his back to him. Homelander looked back carefully, and after confirming that the shapeshifter had turned back to Peter, he turned his head slowly. "It's okay, John." The shapeshifter held Homelander's hand and said to him, "Don't be afraid, I have always been your strongest shield, and you are my spear. We will change the world." I don't know if it was because the shapeshifter almost revealed his true identity just now that made him a little frightened. Homelander approached the shapeshifter in a daze. His ferocious and violent expression instantly turned into a harmless expression. "Yes, Dad, I am your sharpest spear." Outside the mirror, in the mysterious house, Azu looked at his own coquettish operation in another world, and was stunned in place, unable to close his mouth for a long time. This guy actually let a shapeshifter turn into Dad to comfort him. Isn't this deceiving himself? Is there something wrong with this guy? He seriously suspected that the grown-up self in another world was definitely mentally ill. And there was this, a bastard who could turn into his father. Zhu clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth, and looked extremely angry. He had never seen such a perverted person. He dared to turn into his father. This extremely disrespectful and extremely perverted disgusting behavior made him want to get into the mirror and twist off this guy's head, and then crush it. Night. Are you okay, John? At Padrick Farm, Peter looked at Zhu, who showed a gnashing expression from time to time. This time it was Martian Hunter who cooked, and he thought he would have a big appetite. But looking at Zhu's current appearance, he guessed that Zhu was probably not satisfied with Martian Hunter's food. It seems that the food he cooked may have made him dependent. Sure enough, his cooking skills have improved. Peter thought to himself. Martian Hunter looked at Zhu and asked him, "Are you not hungry, John?" "No, I just thought of something else." Zhu immediately changed back to a well-behaved expression and continued to eat rice in the bowl. I learned this from watching movies. As Zhu looked at the Martian Hunter with a guilty conscience. He knew that he could see through his thoughts. If he was seen stealing his father's key to the secret room, he would definitely be punished. What made him breathe a sigh of relief was that the Martian Hunter was enjoying the food and didn't seem to care where he learned it from. After dealing with Peter, Azu fell into a bold guess. According to the theoretical guesses in the movies he watched, could it be that he was a time traveler? From that mirror world? Then he was not his father's biological child? No, it wouldn't be. Azu, who was getting more and more scared the more he thought about it, quickly stopped this dangerous idea. After dinner, Peter was in the room, looking at the watch on his wrist. It had been more than 3 years since Star-Lord landed last time. Now the pointer on the watch has passed 3/4 of the way, and it is less than a quarter of the way to the end. It took more than 6 years from Azu's landing to Star-Lord's landing. This time, it will take about 4 years from Star-Lord's landing to the next baby. That is to say, he looked up at the cloudless sky. In less than a year, the next baby will be born? Is this a coincidence, or is there a rule? The later the time, the shorter the time interval between the birth of babies. Stroking his beard, Peter fell into deep thought. Knock. 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 As he was thinking, there was a knock on the door. Martian Manhunter opened the door and came in. Peter, you finally have time, Jones, otherwise I think I would have to hire a new housekeeper. Peter turned around and said to the other party. Martian Manhunter shrugged his shoulders. I encountered some superpowered criminals. They are a bit difficult to deal with and took me a lot of time. I heard from Star-Lord that the farm has been a bit lively recently and many guests have come. He walked over to Peter and said, is there any fatal attraction on your farm that always attracts some children? It's possible. Peter was quite happy about the arrival of Martian Manhunter. Not only did someone do the farm work, he didn't have to be responsible for the meals, and he also had the candidates to train Zhu and Star-Lord. Anyway, Jones. Welcome back. I feel your enthusiasm, Martian Manhunter said with a smile. Just one thing, Peter said to him with a serious expression, don't eat Oreos in front of Star-Lord. His sweet tooth is seriously exceeded now. Don't let him be addicted to Oreos like you. Martian Manhunter's smile froze on his face. Is there any connection between Star-Lord's sweet addiction and his love for Oreos? The next day, early in the morning, the bus stopped at Kent Farm, and Clark got on with his school bag. The first thing he saw when he got on the bus was Azu. Walking towards Azu, he put his school bag on his chest, greeted Azu, and looked at Lana. Lana seems a little different today, Clark whispered to Azu. Azu didn't notice anything wrong. What's different? More beautiful. No, it's just a weird feeling. Clark frowned slightly. I don't know how to describe that feeling. You don't know Lana, Clark. Azu moved his gaze from the window to the side. So your feelings may not be correct. Clark didn't say anything else, just looked at Lana again. Hey, Clark. After school in the afternoon, Clark packed his school bag and was about to leave. Lana stood in front of the classroom door and greeted him. Lana, we haven't talked for a long time, right, Clark? Lana came over and said to him with a smile. Yes, I'm sorry about what happened last time. I said some excessive words. That's not the real me. I don't know how to explain it to you. Clark was a little at a loss to explain to the other party. It doesn't matter, I have forgotten it a long time ago. Lana came over and faced Clark. Feeling the other's breath, Clark swallowed nervously. He quickly looked away, not looking directly at Lana, to avoid the accident that happened in the last biology class. Seeing that the other party didn't dare to look directly at her, Lana's smile became even bigger. "Is Uncle Padraic here?" she asked Clark about Peter. The godfather should be at home. Clark didn't know why the other party mentioned the godfather. "I want to go to Uncle Padraic's house tonight, Clark. Are you welcome?" Chapter 134. Bringing his girlfriend home, Azu was provoked. "Uncle Jones, do you know the story of London Bridge?" Star-Lord, who was meditating at Padraic's farm, suddenly opened his eyes and asked Martian Manhunter. "I don't know what happened to London Bridge. The story is that they used to sacrifice children to build bridges, and burying a dead child under the bricks would keep the bridge standing, or so the legend goes, but it didn't work, because in the end, all the bridges collapsed and were destroyed." Star-Lord meditated with Martian Manhunter for a whole day, but he didn't inspire his potential. He continued with some frustration, "I feel like I am London Bridge, and it will eventually collapse. No matter what you want to bury under it, you are not London Bridge, Star-Lord." Martian Manhunter reached out and patted him on the shoulder. "Didn't you say you were someone who would conquer the galaxy? Do you want to give up after this little setback?" "No, I didn't give up." Star-Lord took a look at the bracelet that Kelly gave him. The last time the farm caught fire, he activated his ability to transform into a white wolf, but now no matter how he tried to transform, he couldn't do it. It seemed that his ability could only be triggered under certain specific conditions. Just like the child, only by sacrifice can London Bridge be built. Only when you lose something will your ability be awakened. "I also want to be like Clark and John." Star-Lord sat down on the ground of the farm, "but it seems that I can't be as strong as them. I also hope to have a strong power to help my father and help my father protect the farm." He told the Martian hunter next to him his true thoughts. "I am afraid that I am not strong enough to stop the approach of death." "Are you afraid of death, Star-Lord?" Martian hunter sat next to him and asked him. "Yes, I saw many deaths in my dreams, so I don't want this to happen in reality. I'm afraid that my father and I will be separated by death." "No, it won't." Martian Manhunter comforted Star-Lord. "You will not be surrounded by death, Star-Lord, and your father will not be separated from you because of death." He pointed to the setting sun in the sky and said to Star-Lord, "And death is not all terrible. Look at the setting sun. It seems to be setting, but it is not sinking. It is constantly shining in a cycle, so, don't be uneasy about it." Star-Lord stared at the setting sun and nodded for a long time. He seemed to be touched by something in his heart. "Okay, do it again. Close your eyes, concentrate, follow the method I taught you, and feel the power in your body." Martian Manhunter asked Star-Lord to do it again. Star-Lord followed Martian Manhunter's method, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. This time he no longer thought about death, and his thoughts were no longer disordered. As his mind was highly concentrated, a white pure energy body gradually formed on his hand, lingering around his fingertips and expanding. "Mr. Jones, I seem to feel it," Star-Lord exclaimed in surprise. As soon as the words fell, there was a puff. The energy of the gods surrounding his fingertips melted away instantly because of his emotional fluctuations. "Very good, you have taken the first step to success." Seeing that Star-Lord successfully released the energy of the gods, the Martian Manhunter patted Star-Lord on the shoulder with satisfaction. Star-Lord opened his eyes flashing with excitement. He finally succeeded. "I have to tell my dad," Star-Lord said and ran away immediately. Looking at the back of Star-Lord running away, the Martian Manhunter let out a helpless breath. This naughty child is really impatient. At night, Azu looked at Lana in front of him in surprise. He didn't expect Lana to come to his house. With a suspicious look, he glanced at Clark, who was a little uneasy next to him. He felt that Clark brought his girlfriend to meet his parents. No, even if it was to meet the parents, Clark should lead the other party to meet Jonathan and Martha, not here. Could it be that Clark defaulted to his father as the parent? Pinching his chin like Peter, Zu fell into deep thought. He remembered that the last time Clark put on the ruby ring and lost his humanity, he said that he overheard his parents' conversation and learned that he was not his biological child. Could it be that this guy, after knowing that he was not Jonathan and Martha's biological child, decided that his biological father was his father? Thinking of this, Zu looked at Clark with more and more displeasure. So is he bringing his girlfriend to the door to provoke him? It's okay that the guy in the other world provoked him before, but now Clark is going to bring his girlfriend to the door to claim sovereignty. "John, is Uncle Padraic not here?" Just as Zhu was thinking about it, Lana interrupted his thoughts. No, Dad is not here, he went out with Uncle Jones. Zhu asked her, what do you want? Nothing, just some things I need to ask Uncle Padraic. Lana smiled at Zhu. Since Uncle Padraic is not here, I'll wait here for a while. Lana said she could wait here. Whatever you want to do. Zhu shrugged his shoulders and walked towards Clark. Clark, why did you bring her here? Zhu whispered to Clark. I didn't bring her here. Clark felt innocent. Lara said she wanted to come here. Really? It wasn't your idea. No. Clark explained what happened in the classroom during the day. Lana, who was sitting next to him, saw Clark talking to Zhu. With a smile on her face, she stretched out her hand and silently chanted a spell towards Clark. Clark, who was explaining to Zhu, suddenly felt a trance. Zhu saw Clark suddenly stunned and asked him in confusion, are you okay, Clark? Yes, I'm fine. After saying this, Clark looked at Lana who was sitting on the sofa. Actually, you are right, Zhu. I brought Lana here on purpose. What did you say? Zhu looked at Clark, whose face suddenly changed, and his eyes suddenly became unfriendly. I like Lana, so is there anything wrong with bringing Lana to the Godfather? Clark said in a matter-of-fact tone. You should bring them back to your parents, not here. Seeing Clark's indifferent expression, Zhu clenched his fists and said unhappily, Dad is not your father. I have long regarded the Godfather as my father. It's nothing. On the contrary, it's you who has some problems, John. You don't look normal. Can I think you are provoking me? Zhu clenched his fists even tighter. He suddenly felt that Clark was extremely annoying at this time, just like last time. You know? Lana doesn't like you. Zhu felt that he had to fight back. What? Clark was shocked when he heard Zhu's words. I said Lana doesn't like you. You are just being sentimental. Zhu folded his hands in front of his chest and said something that stunned Clark. If she likes you, she won't be so distant to you. I think even Whitney has a better chance than you. Shut up, Clark, who was angry and embarrassed, shouted at Zhu angrily. I said the truth, but I was right, so you are so angry? Zhu looked at Clark's blushing face and felt relieved. But Zhu was not satisfied with just this. He wanted to add fuel to the fire. I've seen Whitney and Lana get close before. I didn't make this up. You can ask Whitney or Lana. Looking at Clark's increasingly furious expression, Zhu, who felt a little unsatisfied, added, but this is also normal, Clark. After all, you can't compare to Whitney in terms of apparent advantages. Upstairs, Star-Lord was studying how to better release the energy in his body. Suddenly, he heard a bang sound from downstairs, and the floor under his feet was shaken slightly. Thinking something had happened, he hurried downstairs to check. What he saw was Clark pushing Zhu out. With a bang, Zhu fell heavily to the floor. The powerful force instantly deformed the floor, and the furniture in the living room was also affected and shattered. This is my home. Clark, Zhu, who was pushed down, roared, and lasers shot out of his eyes instantly, hitting Clark's body. With a bang, Clark's body flew backwards instantly, smashed through the wall, and slid several meters on the mud and grass before stopping. For a while, smoke and a strong smell of burning filled the living room. Lana, who was sitting on the sofa, witnessed the conflict between the two people just now, with disbelief in her eyes. She just released a charm magic on Clark, and the two of them fought? And the fighting method was in a way she had never seen before. Could these two guys be gods? At this time, the soul in Lana's body did not belong to her, but to the wizard Madeleine Evans in the 17th century. At the same time, the other party was also a good friend of Elizabeth Parr's, one of the 3 witches who were burned to death at the stake that year. The cause was that when Lana was flipping through the magic book left by Madeleine Evans, the blood from her fingers dripped onto the magic book, causing the magic to take effect, and Lana was occupied by her ancestor. After possessing Lana, Madeleine's original purpose was to meet this man who had a special position in Lana's heart. Unexpectedly, just a bad taste of his own would directly lead to fierce conflict between Zhu and Clark. Lana realized that it was not appropriate to stay here for a long time, and immediately left the farm as quickly as possible. Without noticing Lana's departure, Zhu stood up panting, ready to teach Clark a lesson. This guy actually hid himself again for a girl, which was simply unforgivable. Just when Zhu was about to take action, he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. Then a voice that made his heart jump rang out. John? What are you doing? Chapter 135 Dad, Clark is crazy. Dad. Zhu turned around trembling with fear, and saw Peter staring at him with an unfriendly look. and the Martian Manhunter with his arms crossed and a look of spectators. His original intention to teach Clark a lesson immediately disappeared. The angry expression disappeared from his face in an instant, and Zoo quickly changed to a harmless expression. "Dad, Clark is crazy." "What?" Originally, Peter came back and saw the miserable situation in the room. He thought that these two naughty kids wanted to destroy the house again like last time. When he was about to deal with them, he was stunned when he heard Zoo's words. He looked at Zoo with a suspicious look. "What did you say?" "Clark just attacked me for no reason, and he pushed me to the ground." Zoo immediately packaged himself as a victim, and he used a lot of strength. "If I didn't have a superhuman body like you, Dad, I might have been pushed directly into the hospital by him." Zoo spoke of Clark's atrocities against him in an innocent tone, without mentioning his words that provoked Clark. "Then, I fought back a little and shot Clark out with my thermal vision." "Really?" Peter looked outside the room and saw Clark standing up from the ground, scratching his head. Clark was also a little confused at this time. He didn't know how he fell to the ground, and there was a burning pain in his chest. Rubbing his short-circuited head, he walked into the living room. After seeing Peter's dangerous look at him, his expression froze. "Clark, John said you just attacked him. Is this true?" Peter asked him. Clark looked at Zoo with an innocent expression, trying to recall what happened just now. But the vague memory only remembered that he seemed to have talked about Lana with Zoo, and then his emotions were a little difficult to control, and finally pushed Zoo out directly. "By the way, where is Lana?" Looking at the place where Lana had just sat, he found that Lana had disappeared. I don't remember what happened. Sorry, Godfather, I shouldn't be so impulsive. It seems that my emotions are out of control just now." He looked at Zoo. "Sorry, Zoo, I shouldn't have pushed you first." Seeing that Clark seemed a little confused, Zoo breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he could put the blame on Clark and he wouldn't be punished. Peter took a look at the damaged floor and the holes in the wall, and the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He had just repaired the room, and in the blink of an eye it was destroyed by these two naughty kids. Could it be that the system assigned him this kind of father warrior who was specifically here to make him miserable? Taking a deep breath, Peter forced himself to calm down, and then looked at Zoo with suspicion. He knew his eldest son's character very well. It was basically impossible for this kid to be pushed down by Clark for no reason. Seeing Star-Lord coming downstairs with a complicated expression on his face, Peter asked him, "Star-Lord, is what John said true? I was upstairs just now, and I saw the conflict when I came downstairs." "Dad, I don't know what happened," Star-Lord organized his words and said to Peter, "but I did see that it was Clark who pushed Zoo first." He told what he saw. But he would not believe Zoo's words so easily. In addition, he was shocked by Zoo's face-changing skills and his ability to lie without blushing. He gritted his teeth and wanted to attack Clark the previous second. But the next second he showed a wronged look to his father. Star-Lord suddenly thought of the politicians who gave speeches to the public on TV. Dad said that those guys were born liars. He felt that Zoo must be very talented to do such a job. It's a pity that he doesn't have such a powerful skill. With a lot of messy thoughts in his mind, Star-Lord felt that he had to be more vigilant against Zoo. If the other party used this trick to deal with him in front of his father, he would have no way to deal with it. After secretly labeling Zoo as sinister, Star-Lord looked up and said to Peter, "Dad, Lana was here just now, but she left after Zoo and Clark had a conflict." Lana. Hearing Lana's name, his brows frowned. Could it be that this naughty kid got into a fight because of Lana? Fighting because of a woman? He looked around Zoo and Clark with a suspicious look. "You guys are really promising. Why is Lana here?" he asked Clark. Clark scratched his head. "Lana said she wanted to come over, so I brought her to the farm." Zoo, who was next to him, saw that Peter's tone had softened a little, and the big stone in his heart was put down. He quickly said to Peter, "Dad, Clark said Lana was not right today. What's wrong?" Clark saw Peter's eyes on him, and said hesitantly, "I don't know, but I feel that Lana is a little different from her usual self." "Yeah." Peter stroked the beard on his chin and fell into deep thought. He remembered that last time at the Talon Club, he accidentally saw a mark on Lana's arm that was similar to the mark on teacher Katie, who was once possessed. Could it be that Lana was also possessed by a witch, which caused Clark's strange behavior just now? Peter made some guesses. After thinking for a while, he looked at the mess in the living room and sighed. "Okay, Clark, John, since you two have made a mistake, you must be punished." He looked at the two people who were nervous and said in a serious tone, "What is the punishment?" Clark asked timidly. Deduct 1 week's pocket money, and in addition, half of the hourly wage for odd jobs on the farm will be deducted, he said to the two people. Now, go upstairs and sleep. Oh, the two lowered their heads and went upstairs with depressed expressions. Azu was particularly depressed. The deduction of money made him feel that life would be worse than death. It would be better to be beaten. After the two people who had caused the trouble and Star-Lord went upstairs, Peter let out a helpless breath and said to the Martian hunter next to him, I am repairing the house more and more frequently. If I were an ordinary farmer with no savings, I would be at risk of bankruptcy at any time. Martian hunter looked at the damaged floor and said with a smile, I agree, and I suspect that when the children on your farm grow up, this frequency will become once a day. Peter retorted to him, I am not married yet, Jones, and you can't say for sure about the child. I have no doubt about your ability to adopt a child. Whether it is Azu or Star-Lord, they are not ordinary people. Next time you suddenly stand in front of me with a glowing child, I won't be surprised. The glowing one is Jesus, Jones. Even if you show up with him, I won't be too shocked. Peter. The next day, early in the morning, Clark went downstairs with a bitter face. Lana's incident last night made him sleep all night. Downstairs, Azu sat on the sofa with a worried expression. Peter, who had been waiting downstairs, saw Clark coming downstairs, stood up and said, Let's go. John, Clark, where to? Godfather, Clark asked nervously. You'll know when you get there. At the same time, at the Neil horse farm. Lana was busy doing something in her room. There were various medieval alchemical instruments in the room, bottles and jars were placed on the table, and strange materials were piled in the corner, emitting a smell of herbs everywhere. Lana stared at the container being heated and picked up the notebook next to it. Mushroom oil, toad skin, and then 2 virgin hairs. Reading the words on it, she pulled out a hair of her own and put it in the container. There is another one. She turned to the next page of the notebook and took out a golden hair sandwiched in the middle. This golden hair was the hair of teacher Martha McConaughey that she pulled at school yesterday. Well, I didn't expect that teacher Martha was still a virgin. After complaining, she put the golden hair into the container. The potion she made was a magic potion. All she had to do was to make the magic potion to summon the souls of the other 2 witches. While she was making the magic potion, she looked up and saw a car parked outside the horse farm. Peter, John, and Clark got out of the car. Lana was shocked to see Peter. She didn't expect Peter to show up at her home. Bang! After closing the car door, Peter led the 2 into the horse farm. Godfather, is this the destination you mentioned? Clark asked curiously. He didn't know why Peter brought him to Aunt Lana's house. Yes, Peter knocked on the door, and Neil stepped forward and opened the door. Peter, sorry, Neil, I didn't say hello in advance. Neil didn't expect Peter to visit her, and said to him in surprise, You are not the kind of person who follows the rules. Please come in, and there are little John and little Clark. Neil, who was familiar with Peter, immediately welcomed the 3 in. What would you like to drink? Coffee or juice? No, you're welcome, Neil. Peter declined and asked him, Is Lana here? He came here just to confirm whether Lana was possessed by a witch. After the Katie incident, he had experience with this kind of thing, and he could feel whether Lana was possessed. Lana, yes, Clark and Azu had a fight yesterday, which might have scared her. I wanted to come and see if Lana was okay, Peter said sincerely. Uncle Patrick, before Neil could speak, a voice came from the top of the stairs. Thank you for coming to see me. I'm fine. Lana was wearing a black floral dress, holding a notebook, and walked down with a smile. Clark looked at the charming Lana and suddenly felt a little depressed. Why does Lana look at the Godfather differently from when she looks at herself? The next chapter may be a little late. I'm sorry readers, you can read it tomorrow morning. In addition, thank you all for your monthly tickets and rewards. I will thank you specifically later. I really appreciate all the readers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Clark loses the farm inheritance. Clark always felt that Lana looked at him as if she was looking at a child. And the look she gave to her godfather seemed to have a deeper meaning. Lana was obviously the same age as him, but he didn't know why he had such a different feeling. Didn't you say you were not feeling well? Neil saw Lana coming downstairs and asked her in surprise. I'm fine, And Lana smiled at Neil and sat on the sofa next to her. She said to Peter, who was sitting opposite, "Uncle Patrick, I didn't see the conflict between Clark and John yesterday. I left the farm before the conflict between the two of them." Clark breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Lana say this. He didn't know how to explain to her, but when he heard Lana say that she didn't see the superpower battle between him and Azu, the stone in his heart was immediately put down. Azu was not as simple as Clark. He looked at the other party with suspicion. Although he didn't pay much attention to Lana's movements, he was sure that the other party left after the conflict between him and Clark. "That's good." Peter took a deep look at Lana and said. He could feel that Lana's body exuded an aura similar to that of Teacher Katie. There is no doubt that the other party must have some kind of connection with the witch, either being directly possessed or having his consciousness affected. He sniffed and smelled a strange smell in the room. Noticing Peter's actions, Neil took the initiative to explain to Peter, "Lana has recently become obsessed with chemical refining. She said that this kind of experiment is very meaningful, so she has been fiddling with a lot of things at home. In fact, I have been studying some things about alchemy in the 16th century recently, which should be helpful for my chemistry class," Lana added on the side. Hearing Lana's sudden strange hobby, Clark and Azu looked at each other. "I think you should be interested," Lana said to the few people with a smile. "Maybe you can introduce us, Lana." In order to keep the atmosphere from getting cold, Neil coughed and said to her. "Of course," Lana said as she opened the notebook in her hand and said to everyone, "For example, this stone was called the Magic Stone by people at that time, also known as the Philosopher's Stone. Alchemists firmly believed that this stone had incredible power. Possessing this stone would have the power to control the entire world." Clark frowned as he looked at the prismatic magic stone drawn on Lana's notebook. He rubbed his forehead, always feeling that he had seen this stone somewhere before. Thinking back, he remembered that he had seen this magic stone in his dream, accompanied by a spaceship in his dream. Peter stared at the magic stone in the notebook and pondered. After a while, he looked up at Lana. For a moment, Lana felt as if she was being stared at by some terrible existence. The strange feeling kept lingering in Clark's mind, so much so that when he left Neil Farm, he was still thinking about it. When the car returned to the farm, Clark woke up from his dream. "Godfather, does the Philosopher's Stone really exist in the world?" he asked Peter in confusion. "I don't know. I'm not an alchemist," Peter shook his head and said, "but I don't believe that if you have the Philosopher's Stone, you own the world, Dad." Azu next to him immediately said, "I don't agree with this statement either. For me, if I have Dad, I own the whole world." After hearing this, Peter looked at this little flatterer in surprise. Is this kid flattering him because he is afraid that he will punish him for what happened yesterday? Clark didn't expect Azu to suddenly say such a thing. He scratched his head and said to Peter, "Godfather, you and my parents are also my whole world." "Peter, you also have biological parents," Azu next to him added faintly. Clark was immediately frozen by his words. After a while, Clark looked at Peter with a guilty look. "Biological parents are not really important. After all, they abandoned me." Peter looked at Clark in surprise when he heard this. When did this kid know that his biological parents were not Jonathan and Martha? "Clark, who told you that you were adopted?" "I overheard it." Clark didn't dare to look Peter in the eye. "Did you eavesdrop on your parents' conversation?" "Sorry, Godfather, I didn't mean to." Clark didn't care about Zeus telling. He explained to Peter, "I have never told anyone, and my parents don't know either. It's just that I couldn't control myself when I put on the red kryptonite ring that time, so I accidentally said it, that's it." After listening to Clark's story, he fell into deep thought. Since Clark knew about this, he probably knew his Kryptonian identity soon. Clark was a little depressed, but he soon remembered something and asked Peter expectantly, "Godfather, can I ask you a question?" "What? Are you my biological father?" Clark asked the question he wanted to ask the most, which was also the question that had been bothering him in his childhood. Hearing Clark's question, Zoo also pricked up his ears. Peter looked at Clark, who was looking at him with hope, shook his head, and stroked his hair. "No, I'm not, Clark." Although he could lie to Clark now, in the future Clark would always find the Kryptonian spaceship in the Arctic, obtain the secret of his life experience, and leave the farm and the town. Hearing Peter's denial, Clark's eyes showed a disappointment, and the whole person immediately felt bad. Azu next to him heard Peter's negative answer, and the big stone in his heart was finally put down. Great, Clark finally gave up. Clark, who had been competing with him since childhood, failed so simply. and Azu is extremely happy. The emptiness after the victory hit him. Although he wanted to laugh now, he had to pretend to be heavy when he thought of his father still next to him. But the uncontrollable arc of his mouth still betrayed his mood. At lunch, Clark still didn't get out of the mood of loss. Sitting on the windmill, Clark's legs swung meaninglessly, staring at the lush corn on the farm. He felt like his whole body was sunk into muddy syrup, or like a mosquito stuck in cooling ember. "Are you in a bad mood, Clark?" Peter's voice sounded behind him. "Godfather." Clark turned his head suddenly and saw Peter standing behind him. "No, I'm just a little confused." Clark lowered his head and said, "I don't know where I came from or where I will go in the future. At first I thought Godfather was my father, because we have the same abilities. It was Godfather who taught me how to know myself, how to control my power, and how not to be hurt because of my own specialness." Clark bit his lip and said, "Now that Godfather says it's not, it seems like I've suddenly lost something. Our relationship will not change because of this, Clark." Peter touched the other's hair. "I have always treated you as my own child, Clark." "Then Godfather, what kind of child do you think I am?" Clark looked at him expectantly. "I know a man who possesses extraordinary powers, but when facing ordinary people, even those with particularly bad tempers, most people will argue with him without giving in, and then develop into a tit-for-tat argument, until finally they swear at each other and both sides suffer, just like playing a malicious game of badminton, with both sides aiming the ball at each other's eyes." Peter paused and continued, "But he won't refute, he will only smile. He never does anything to fan the flames, let alone add fuel to the fire. He is like a Tai Chi master who is proficient in the art of appeasement, and like a Zen master who is detached from the world." After listening to Peter's words, Clark thought for a while. "Godfather, I think he must be the kind of person you said who knows why he is fighting, right?" "Yes, he knows." Peter sat next to him. "That's Clark Patrick Kent in the eyes of the Godfather, and the kind of person he hopes you will become, with great power but always knowing who the power is for, kind and great, and never confused. Even if you are temporarily confused, as long as you have hope in your heart, you will never lose it, right?" Peter said, drawing an S on his chest. Clark felt a glowing S on his chest, looked at the encouraging eyes of his godfather, and suddenly felt that his mood was not so bad. On the other side, Azu in the room was in a state of hesitation. Although he was happy that Clark was deprived of the inheritance of the farm, he felt a little bit reluctant to see the other party's lost expression. "Well, this has nothing to do with me. Clark pushed me out yesterday. I should be happy, right?" Taking a deep breath, Azu looked at himself in the mirror. The self in the mirror was not happy at all now. Plop! Azu fell on the bed all of a sudden, looking at the ceiling above his head. As a brother who grew up together, he could not turn a blind eye to Clark's pain. Secretly peeping into the secrets in his heart. Maybe he can help Clark find the secret about his life experience. Secret house. Thinking of this, Azu jumped up from the bed all of a sudden. Unexpectedly, he accidentally hit the desk with a bang, breaking a corner of the desk. Late at night, Clark was lying on the bed and falling asleep. With a creak, the door was gently pushed open, and a figure quietly walked in. Turning over, Clark turned over and continued to sleep. With sleepy eyes, he vaguely saw a figure standing in front of him. Startled, Clark almost jumped up. "SHH. It's me, Clark." "Don't talk." "Who?" Clark asked confusedly. "Me, Azu. Thanks to Liang Si. Dream with you in the stars, inadvertently not happy." Book Friend Tale number 3208, Muran Zuinkson for the reward, Bo. It's really hard. Thank you readers for the monthly ticket. Recommended book, a good fanfiction of celebrating union. I am a Han succubus, rebelling at the beginning. The link is below, you can check it out if you like it. Chapter 137, another Azu who longs for love but does not receive it in return. "John, why are you here, late at night?" Clark looked at Azu standing in front of him and asked in surprise. "Don't talk, it will be bad if Dad or Star-Lord find out." Azu made a gesture to Clark to keep quiet. "Get up, Clark, I'll take you to a place." "I don't quite understand," Clark whispered, getting off the bed. "Where are we going?" "Just follow me." Azu handed Clark the clothes. "Hurry up, we must be back before dawn." Although Clark felt strange in his heart, he finally listened to Azu's words and quickly put on his clothes. With a wave of curtains, the two jumped out of the window and left the farm in an instant. Standing in the dim night, Clark curiously asked Azu, "Where are we going?" "A place that is a bit far away," Azu said and took out a golden key in his hand. Clark looked at the key in surprise. He didn't know that Azu had a key in his hand that he had never seen before. What is this? A key that opens a room where you can peek into anything you want to see. Azu took a deep breath and said to Clark, that is a secret house that has existed since the beginning of time. It contains countless secrets and is a place full of magic and wonder. Why do you have the key there, John? Clark asked him in confusion. This is the key that Zatanna gave to my father. I borrowed it to use. You stole the Godfather's key, Clark asked him with his eyes wide open. He didn't expect the other party to be so bold. No, of course not stealing. I just borrowed it. Between my father and me, I mean there is no need to describe it as stealing between us. Azu vowed that he was just borrowing it temporarily. Although Azu said so, Clark insisted that he return the key. I think the Godfather will be angry if he knows. We'd better return the key. Are you sure? Azu put away the key. This secret room can help you, Clark. It can help you see the secrets you want to see. Aren't you curious about your life experience? Dad is not your biological father. Mr. Jonathan and his family are just your adoptive parents. Don't you want to know where you come from? Facing Azu's question, Clark hesitated. Don't worry, if I'm found out, I will explain to Dad. If Dad wants to punish me, he will only punish me. Azu patted Clark's shoulder and comforted him. Okay, Clark was finally convinced by Azu. Although he knew it was wrong to do so, he had a strong curiosity about the secret room that Azu mentioned. Half an hour later, Azu and Clark stood in front of Zatanna's house. Okay, this is Zatanna's house. We have to hurry. Azu motioned Clark to move faster. Exhaling, Clark looked at the surrounding environment. Surrounding it were box-like suburban houses, white curbstones, bird baths, energy-saving lamps, lush lilacs next to the mailbox, graffiti on the walls, and bright white rain gutters. The houses here all look the same. I almost got lost the first time I came here, Azu complained as he led Clark into the room and skillfully used the key to open the workshop. As the secret house was activated, the entire room began to move. The walls twisted and deformed, the stairs led to different areas, and the interior decorations were transformed to the ceiling. Clark stood there in amazement as he saw the room become magical, as if it had been cast by magic. What is this? Clark's shocked words got stuck in his throat and he couldn't speak. According to Dad and Zatanna, the secret house was awakened and removed its disguise. But because we have the key, we will not be regarded as intruders by him, otherwise we may be trapped here forever and never get out, Azu explained to Clark. This is the magic of magic, so, don't be surprised. Clark took a few seconds to react. He swallowed and asked Azu, what should I do next? Go to a room. If you are lucky, maybe you will see what you want to see. Clark asked nervously, what if you are unlucky? If you are unlucky, you may encounter some monsters, but I believe that with your strength, you will definitely not be eaten by monsters. Azu shrugged and said. Last time he sneaked in and opened a door, he encountered a tentacle monster. The monster with tentacles on its big eyeballs rolled up countless tentacles and attacked him. Fortunately, he ran fast and was not dragged away by the tentacle monster. Good luck, we will meet here later. After speaking to Clark, Azu walked towards a door alone. Aren't we going together? Clark was dumbfounded when he saw Azu leave. No, I don't have the habit of sharing secrets with others. Azu waved at him without looking back. Seeing Azu leave, Clark felt a little uneasy, but he could only try to move forward helplessly. Squeak! Azu held his breath nervously and looked into the room. It was still pitch black, and the room was empty and quiet so that he could hear his heartbeat. Click! The sound of the clapperboard echoed in the space, and then the environment in the room began to brighten. Okay, yes, can we shoot? Yes, it has already started. After hearing the director say that it had already started, Azu in the mirror world's serious expression immediately became as happy as spring breeze. He was introducing his house to the crew. To Azu's astonishment, the room introduced by the adult version of Azu was exactly the same as his own farm. This house was built by my grandfather. He was a farmer who ran a farm all his life. He was a great man. As he walked forward, the motherland introduced. He walked to the sofa, pointed at the TV opposite and said, every night, my father and I would sit in front of the TV to watch TV. I remember it was a TV series about werewolves. Sorry, I forgot the specific name, these. And these. Then he pointed to the bookshelf next to him and said, these are my favorite books when I was a child, the story of the monkey's paw, and the mermaid, Touching the spines of the books with his fingers, he said with a complicated expression, "My father would tell me before I went to bed." It was a wonderful memory. With a smile on his face, he walked to a photo frame. In the photo frame was a photo of Peter and him. The two wore baseball caps and held up baseball gloves for a photo, looking very happy. "This is me. My father took this photo of me when I hit my first home run. I love you, Dad." As he said this, the motherland looked at the photo frame and kissed his fingers. Azu looked at the other self in the mirror world and was completely stunned. The other party actually copied his childhood life completely, and told it to the camera without blushing. "Is this guy so shameless? Although he left me, I will always miss him." The Homelander in the mirror world made a sad expression of remembering his father. Wait, seeing this, Azu roared and wanted to shoot his laser eyes directly through his head. This guy not only cheated, but also cursed his father to death. Azu in the mirror world continued to show his room to the reporter. "Next is the Baseball Hall of Honor, where many of my honors are placed." Homelander took the reporter to a showroom full of trophies and certificates. "This is my secret room. I rarely show these to people. Look at this." He took out a group photo. "This is a group photo of me and the Tigers. It's not the real Tigers, it's a temporary team. I played as a shortstop in it. Of course, there are many more here. I can't introduce them to you one by one." He took a deep breath, and his expression was extremely complicated. "This feels good. I mean the feeling of being back here again." When he said this, his expression paused and glanced at the bed. He had a strange expression, and the corners of his mouth trembled, but he still suppressed his emotions. Although reason told him that it was time to shit now, he needed to control himself. But in the end, he couldn't help but smash the photo frame to the ground with a bang. He pointed at the white blanket on the bed and asked with a ferocious expression, "Who the hell put the blanket here?" Seeing that the motherland was angry, the director hurried over to explain, Sorry, motherland, I want to make this place have a family atmosphere, so I put the towel here, take it away." "Fuck," the motherland, who was a little out of control, said to the director viciously. "I said, everything should be filmed according to the process. I said, are you an idiot?" The motherland, who was upset by the blanket, scolded the crew. Azu in the secret room frowned slightly when he looked at the upset motherland in the mirror. He often dreamed of Azu in the mirror world and knew that the white blanket was his nightmare. In the monotonous, narrow, and colorless room, the only thing that accompanied the motherland in his childhood was that blanket. He took a deep breath and suddenly remembered that he seemed to have a white blanket in his childhood. But the other's blanket represented painful memories. His blanket represented warmth and beautiful memories. In the mirror, a person secretly hid behind a trash can and took out a blanket, then stared at his lost countrymen. Azu's hatred for the other person suddenly faded. Maybe the other person was just another self who had always longed for love but got nothing. Chapter 138 Clark's Rebellion. In the sunlight, the countryman staring at the white blanket in the mirror world seemed to feel something and looked up at the sky. On the other side, Clark mustered up the courage to push open a door and walked in. He was skeptical about what Zu said. The secret room that could peek into his secrets sounded like something in Alice's sleepwalking story. "Okay, think about it carefully. What is the secret you care about most, Clark?" Clark whispered to himself while pushing the door. What kind of person will he become in the future? Can he really become the kind of person that the Godfather said, having great power but always knowing who the power is for, kind and great, and never confused? While thinking, Clark looked at his chest, where there seemed to be a huge S shining. "Even if I am confused temporarily, as long as the hope in my heart is there, I will never lose my way. The Godfather said that I would become this kind of person. It would be great if I could see my future," he whispered and pushed open the door to enter the room. The scene in the room was a little blurry, with some jumping pictures, which made him a little confused. He looked at the pictures with wide eyes, and finally his eyes stopped at a picture of a crowd of people gathered together. A young man with an S painted on his chest and wearing a handsome uniform, surrounded by people, holding an ugly head like an orangutan in his hand. "Darkseid is dead, we won," as the young man with an S painted on his chest shouted. Everyone shouted, "Darkseid!" Clark looked at the orangutan head in the other's hand in surprise. "Is this Darkseid? Is he very powerful?" Then he looked at the S young man, always feeling that he looked a bit like himself. "Superman, we have to return to Earth from Apocalypse." The young man, who was called Superman by everyone, shook his head. "It's not time yet." As he said that, He walked out of the conference room and walked forward through a place similar to the bridge in a science fiction movie. Under the bridge, there were many humans wearing heavy armor, as well as cosmic people wearing green uniforms and green rings on their hands. As Superman walked by, everyone under the bridge cheered and shouted at him. Superman nodded and accepted everyone's admiring gazes. From Clark's point of view outside the mirror, Superman inside seemed to be somewhat immersed in these beautiful cheers. After complaining in his heart, Clark continued to concentrate on looking at the picture in the mirror. Superman, who led everyone to defeat Darkseid, won everyone's cheers and praise. Superman walked across the bridge and came to the conference room. He asked the woman in red and blue armor next to him, "Diana, where's Homelander?" The woman named Diana said to him, "He's leading the army on OA to expel the remnants of Darkseid." "Very good. The next goal is to raid Homelander's army on OA, completely annihilate them, and then move towards the Earth as quickly as possible. We must take the Earth and control the Godfather before other legions react." Hearing Superman's words, Diana was stunned. "You want to rebel against him?" Superman's eyes flashed with a strange light. "Yes, I have made a lot of preparations for this moment. Even though the Godfather is now extremely powerful, we have the elite of the entire galaxy, plus the Green Lantern Corps. As long as we take over the Earth before other legions react, we can win with a quick battle tactic." "I don't understand." Diana frowned and asked him, "Why do you want to rebel against him? You know this will cause war throughout the universe. Don't you support me?" Superman looked at Diana unkindly. "The Godfather said that during the war, I am the commander-in-chief, and you must obey my orders. You will not succeed." Diana said to him, "Your other brothers will definitely stop you, so we have to take them by surprise." "I don't understand. Why do you want to rebel?" "No, this is not rebellion. This is liberation. This has never been what I want. I never thought of launching an attack, but the Godfather betrayed us. He lied to us. He stole the power of the gods and lied to his sons." Superman continued with a serious expression, "If it cannot be saved from the failure of the Godfather, then let the entire galaxy burn." He winked at his men, and they immediately brought in a long-haired young man. The young man in a cyan robe, with his hands and feet tied and even his mouth blocked, was brought in front of Superman. "Loki." Diana looked at the young man who was brought in front of the two and called out his name in shock. "Superman, you imprisoned him? He's your brother." Diana didn't expect that it was Superman who had imprisoned Loki. "From now on, we are no longer brothers." Superman looked at the gagged Loki and shook his head. The next second, before Diana could react, Loki suddenly jumped up, spit out the gag in his mouth, stabbed out the dagger with his right hand, and stabbed at the opponent's neck at lightning speed. Bang! Superman reacted faster and grabbed Loki's arm directly. "You should take some other measures next time, Loki. Such a small trick won't work on me," Superman said, and grabbed Loki's throat with his other hand, and grabbed him directly into the air. Loki, whose throat was strangled, immediately felt a sharp pain, his eyes turned blood red, and he struggled hard in the air. Although Superman strangled his throat, he finally squeezed out a word from his mouth. "You will never become a god." "No." Crack! With Diana's shout, Loki's neck was instantly twisted off. With a thump, Loki's body fell heavily to the ground. With his eyes wide open, he stared straight at Superman. Clark exhaled deeply, took a step back, and looked at Loki lying on the ground with his eyes open in disbelief. Although he didn't know who the other party was, he speculated from this picture that the other party should be the son of the Godfather. Like Star-Lord a few years ago, who did the Godfather marry and gave birth to Loki? As for Diana in the picture, Clark didn't know her, but he could easily guess that Superman was himself. How is it possible? He looked at his hands in shock. If the picture he just saw was what would happen in the future, it would mean that he not only killed the Godfather's son, but was also about to attack John. Even the Godfather on Earth. No, it's impossible. Even if he couldn't be the kind of person who has great power but always knows who the power is for, is kind and great, and never confused, he would never be such a villain. Would he betray the Godfather? How is this possible? Clark swallowed his saliva and took another step back in a panic. He looked around nervously with rapid breathing. Soon, he saw his own eyes on the screen again, as if they were looking directly at him across time and space, across the entire world. Bang! Clark finally couldn't stand the gaze of these eyes and left the room as fast as he could. He closed the door, leaned his back against the door, closed his eyes, and breathed heavily. "Hey, are you okay, Clark?" Azu looked at the sweaty man and asked in confusion. I'm fine, Clark, who was startled by Azu's voice, replied nervously. He covered his chest to prevent Azu from noticing his abnormality. Really? Azu looked at him suspiciously, and he didn't simply believe his explanation. Seeing Clark's abnormal appearance, he suspected that he had really seen something in the secret room. Really, I'm fine, John, then can I come in and take a look? As he spoke, Azu tried to push the door open and wanted to go in and take a look. No, Clark nervously pushed the door shut, not letting Azu open it. Clark, you won't let me in. Clark took a deep breath. Like we said, John, secrets are not shared. Azu looked at Clark's expression, nodded after a while. Well, you're right, each of us has our own secrets, and no one can force us to share if we don't want to. Anyway, Clark, Azu patted Clark on the shoulder and said to him, I just hope you can feel better after you know that your biological father is not your dad. Thank you, John. Clark thanked him sincerely. Although the scene he just saw did not make him feel better, but even worse. But Azu had good intentions after all. Can I ask you a question? Clark hesitated for a moment and asked Azu. What, if I really become a bad guy, what will you do? Clark finally couldn't bear it anymore and asked the other party. If you become a bad guy, I will wake you up with my fist. Azu showed his fist. No matter what time, you will never be my opponent, Clark. His words were full of confidence. But, I think, Clark thought of the scene he had just seen. Although he didn't completely believe that it was true, or his future self, he felt that he had to make some preparations just in case. John, I think you'd better bring some green kryptonite, I mean the kind that you carry with you. Why? Because only in this way can you stop me. When Clark said this, he suddenly remembered the young man named Loki who had his neck twisted. If the other party is really the future child of the Godfather, he should also prepare some for him. Also, do you know if there are items in the world that can prevent cervical fractures? Clark fell into deep trouble. Chapter 139 Rocket Tooth Leela and Banban. The next morning, withered marigolds stretched out from the twisted and broken brick flower pot. Next to it was a ceramic garden gnome model. Star-Lord found a rusty mini golf club behind the model. Just as he was about to clean up the golf club as garbage, he suddenly noticed something moving at his feet. Then the thing jumped out from his feet and quickly ran towards the farm barn. Star-Lord was startled and looked at the fleeing thing in shock. The other party had gray-brown fur color, white ears, and ran like a spinning top. After coming to his senses, Star-Lord immediately rushed up at the fastest speed and hugged the strange creature in front of him that wanted to escape. Dad, I caught a strange creature. Star-Lord held the captured creature and ran towards the living room. Peter was chatting with Martian Manhunter in the living room. When he saw Star-Lord running over with a strange creature in his arms, he was immediately shocked. Dad, what is this? Star-Lord asked excitedly while holding the struggling creature. It should be a raccoon. Peter put down the coffee cup in his hand and replied to Star-Lord, this kind of creature is not common in our place. There was a raccoon among Star-Lord's teammates in the previous life. He didn't expect that the current Star-Lord would have any connection with raccoons. Could it be a subtle force of fate correction? But this raccoon can't speak, which is a bit regrettable. Dad, can I keep him? Star-Lord asked Peter expectantly. Peter shook his head and said to him, Star-Lord, raccoons are not suitable pets to keep. Why? Dad, Star-Lord blinked and asked. Because although they look docile and cute, they still retain a strong wildness and aggressiveness. They have sharp teeth and claws. If they are frightened or threatened, they will bite or scratch people without hesitation, Peter explained to the other party. In addition, raccoons are animals that may carry many diseases, the most common of which is rabies, a fatal neurological disease that can be transmitted to humans or other animals through saliva. After hearing what Peter said, Star-Lord was a little frustrated. But as long as we take good protective measures, I think there shouldn't be a big problem. Peter's sudden turn of events filled Star-Lord's heart with surprise. Thank you, Dad. Star-Lord came up and wanted to hug Peter. But because of the creature in his arms, he had no choice but to stop this way of thanking Peter and nodded his head to Peter intimately. You can give him a name, Peter suggested to him. Name? Star-Lord's eyes lit up. Yes, I want to give him a name. How about calling him Leela? Peter gave him an idea. Leela? No, I don't think it's a good idea. Peter pondered for a moment and said to him, how about calling him Big Tooth? No, his teeth are not big at all. What about Banban? He's not lying on the floor. Peter stroked the beard on his chin and said to him, then call him Rocket. What do you think, Star-Lord? Rocket, Hearing this name, Star-Lord's eyes sparkled. He thought this name was cool, and it seemed to have something to do with him. Okay, I'll call him Rocket. Star-Lord happily accepted the fact that his pet's name was Rocket. After Star-Lord left, Martian Manhunter looked at him suspiciously. Why do I feel like you are hinting at something? Do these 4 names have any meaning? No, they are just the names of 4 cute little animals I know. Peter remembered the names of Rocket Raccoon and his 3 companions, but it's a pity that they died on the road to the New World. Peter put down the coffee cup casually. That's a very old story. Maybe you can tell me about it when you have time. I have plenty of time, especially interested in stories about animals. Martian Manhunter shrugged and said to him, let's talk about it when we have a chance. Peter quickly turned the topic to the right track. Do you know the Magic Stone? Magic Stone? Yes, it's also called the Philosopher's Stone. Peter then simply sketched the Magic Stone drawn by Lana on paper. Philosopher's Stone. Martian Manhunter came over to take a look, and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. I have heard of the name of the Philosopher's Stone. After all, it was very famous in the Middle Ages, but I have never seen it, or I have never seen a stone like this. However, he stared at the magic stone drawn on Peter's paper, organized his words and said to Peter, it looks like some kind of text. Text? Yes, it fits the shape of some Kryptonian texts. I have seen Kryptonian texts. The shape of this magic stone is like Kryptonian texts, but I don't remember what the text is. Peter nodded when he heard this. Is it related to the Kryptonians and Clark? Perhaps. He has to continue investigating from Lana, who has been infected with a witch's breath. He was thinking about the next move when he saw Clark coming down from upstairs. Because he secretly took the Godfather's key last night and entered the secret house, and saw the shocking scene, Clark was too excited and didn't sleep all night. Clark, your mental state doesn't seem to be very good. Didn't you get enough rest last night? Seeing Clark's mental state, Peter asked him with concern. It's just that I didn't sleep well, Godfather. Clark smiled reluctantly at Peter. It's not like you didn't sleep well at all. Peter shook his head and said, looking at the other person's mental state. Clark looked at the Martian Manhunter with a guilty conscience, and said to Peter hesitantly, Godfather, I had a nightmare last night. He didn't dare to talk about the secret house, so he could only vaguely deal with it with a nightmare. Nightmare? Yes, Godfather. Clark organized his words and said to Peter, I dreamed that I won the war on Apocalypse under the command of the Godfather. I don't know what kind of war it was, but it should be very intense. Many people participated, John, Star-Lord, Bruce, and then I won and killed a man called Darkseid. Peter was stunned when he heard the names of Apocalypse and Darkseid. After a while, he asked the other person, then what? Then I took people from Apocalypse to attack the Earth, trying to control the Godfather. After that, it seemed that a bigger war began. Clark omitted the sneak attack on Zoo and the breaking of Loki's neck. He felt that if he told it, he would not arouse the Godfather's suspicion, but Zoo would definitely be angry if he knew. You want to sneak attack the Earth? Go straight from Apocalypse to Earth to take me down? Peter looked at him with disbelief. Not to mention your rebellion. Is it possible that Apocalypse is very close to Earth? How can you surprise attack and take me down? And how did you kill one of the most powerful bosses in the universe? Even if it was a dream, it was impossible to dream of such a thing all at once, right? Peter fell into chaos. The Martian hunter next to him was even more confused after hearing Clark's words. He originally thought that Peter was joking when he said to let the galaxy burn, but he didn't expect Clark to really do it. And he also swept Apocalypse, and even rebelled and came back to attack the Earth's nest. He looked at Peter with suspicion. You not only let the galaxy burn, but also let the entire universe burn. He regretted it a little now. He seemed to have stepped into a vortex, and it was impossible to get out of it simply. Although Clark was dreaming, he would not simply believe that it was an ordinary dream. After all, Clark was not an ordinary child. Godfather, this is just a dream, not the fate of the future, right? Clark asked Peter nervously. Don't you believe in yourself more than fate? Peter comforted him. Don't forget, Clark, as long as you have hope in your heart, you will not be swayed by fate and bad things, but I'm afraid fate will play its own role. The books I read before said that fate will be a kind grandmother, a drunk sorority girl, or Jack Torrance in The Shining. Fate has its own arrangements, as twisted as a dwarf pine tree, Clark said frustratedly. I'm afraid I will be twisted by it. No, it won't. Peter clapped his hands and said, think about the things that scared you in the past. Did we get through them safely? Because you, John, and Star-Lord are not ordinary people, so what you encounter is definitely not as simple as wading through a small stream. You need to survive a big river without oars, boats, or even a pair of small inflatable floating arm lifebuoys. Peter paused and said, the dark forces will keep attacking, and they will keep mixing up right and wrong, but I believe that you are a destiny changer. Am I really, Godfather? Clark asked unconfidently. Of course, Godfather believes you. Clark thought for a moment and said, then Godfather, can I stay on the farm? What? Peter looked at him in astonishment. Why did this kid suddenly say such a thing? I mean, I will stay on the farm in the future. Let Zoo and Star-Lord go out to work. Let them go to Apocalypse and other places. I will protect you on the farm. Zoo, who had just come downstairs, was stunned when he heard Clark's words. He didn't expect that he would be stabbed in the back by Clark. Clark actually asked him to go out to fight, and he wanted to take the opportunity to seize his farm. Isn't this a naked betrayal? Thinking of this, Zoo directly labeled the other party as a traitor in his heart. Sure enough, I shouldn't have been soft-hearted and took him to some secret house. Thank you all for your support. It's a new month. I'm begging for the monthly ticket from the readers. 90-degree bow. Chapter 140. It seems that Lana is really interested in the Godfather. It's cute, isn't it? Star-Lord showed Rocket Raccoon to Zoo and said to him in a boastful tone. Looking at the reluctant raccoon in Star-Lord's hand, Zoo shook his head. I think you'd better not keep a pet. Why? Because it can only live for a few years, Zoo said with experience. The truth that Dad will never tell you is that when it leaves, you will definitely fall into very painful emotion, that is death and separation. At that time, you will fall into the silence of death, and then be stunned, sad, helpless. In short, many negative emotions will find you. Listening to Zoo's words about death and separation, Star-Lord fell into deep thought. What he feared most was death and separation, and he didn't expect Zoo to say it in this way. Taking a deep breath, he asked Zoo, do you know a lot about death, John? Of course, I have attended many funerals with my father. Zoo crossed his arms and said to him, also, my father told me many little anecdotes about funerals, such as at Sicilian funerals, unmarried women would snatch the shroud of the dead and put it under their pillows when they slept, because they believed that this would bring good luck to their love. The Irish would tie the toes of the dead together at funerals, because the ancient Celts believed that this would prevent the ghost of the dead from walking around. Finally, Zoo concluded, no one knows death better than me. No, this is a funeral. Funerals and death are not the same thing. Star-Lord put the raccoon on the ground. I have experienced more deaths than you. Being questioned by Star-Lord in person, Zoo felt a little embarrassed. You are just a child under 4 years old. Star-Lord, how could you have seen real death? That's not necessarily true, John. Maybe I have seen more than you. Star-Lord shrugged and continued, some people are older than me, but their experience is not as rich as mine. What experience can you have? Zoo looked at Star-Lord with suspicion. This kid was young but his tone was quite impressive. Star-Lord said in a serious tone, the experience of traveling around the galaxy. You have traveled around the entire galaxy. Zoo looked like he had heard the funniest thing, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Shut up, Star-Lord, you have always been on the farm and have never been anywhere. Have you ever had a dream? Star-Lord suddenly asked him. What? Zoo was stunned for a moment. In a dream, you will see a different picture of another world, just like you have experienced a different life. In such a dream, I have seen many deaths and the beauty of the galaxy. Star-Lord stared at the blue sky in the distance. I will definitely travel around the galaxy again in the future, and bring my dad with me. Maybe we can form a group. Let me think about it. He coughed and looked thoughtful. Why not call it the Guardians of the Galaxy? The members are me, my dad, and Rocket Raccoon. Zoo had an ugly expression on his face when he heard that the other party had directly excluded him. You will never succeed, Star-Lord, Zoo said firmly, because I won't let Dad leave with you. Really? Star-Lord's stubborn temper came up. Then we'll see who will succeed. After that, he left with Rocket Raccoon in his arms. Huh? Staring at Star-Lord's back as he left, Zoo's cheeks puffed up like big mushrooms, took a deep breath and exhaled. Not only did Clark stab him in the back, but Star-Lord was also not a quiet guy. To deal with these two ambitious guys, it seems that he has to be careful enough in the future. At the same time, after Clark and Peter separated, he walked towards Lana's house. Although he still cares about his betrayal of his godfather, thinking of Lana's recent abnormality, he is a little worried about her situation. At the Nail Horse farm, after Clark knocked on the door, he saw Lana coming out to greet him. "Lana, what? Are you surprised to see me, Clark?" Lana, dressed in a black dress, welcomed Clark in and said to him, "Aunt Neil is busy with a talent club, so she's not at the racecourse. Do you need something to drink, Clark? Coffee, juice, or whiskey?" Clark shook his head a little awkwardly. "I'm not yet an adult, Lana. We can't touch alcohol. You are such an obedient child, Clark." Lana put 2 cups on the table with a smile on her face, then picked up a bottle of whiskey and poured them for the 2 of them. "This is Scotch whiskey. Once the wine stays in your stomach, it will be like a gym sock soaked in apple cider vinegar and scorpion venom." As she said that, she raised the glass in a seductive tone and placed it in front of Clark. "It will make you feel different immediately. You can try it as much as you want, Clark," Lana said as she raised the glass and tasted it herself, then pushed the other glass over. Clark was stunned when he saw Lana drink a glass of whiskey directly. Is this still the Lana he knew? No, Lana, you can't drink." He grabbed the wine glass in the other's hand, trying to take it back. Unexpectedly, Lana turned sideways and dodged Clark's action. "You can't touch me, Clark." Lana smiled at him, stood up and continued to pour herself a glass. You are not Lana, right?" Clark took a deep breath and asked this Lana who made him feel extremely strange. "Yes, you are very smart, Clark," Lana admitted directly. "Then, who are you?" Lana smiled and said to him, "Madeleine Evans." Now in a new body, Clark took a step back vigilantly. "Where's Lana?" "Somewhere in the body." "Then can you let him out?" Lana seemed to have heard something funny, and laughed. "Why would I do that?" Seeing the other party's unmoved expression, Clark knew that the other party would not give up. Although he didn't know why the other party occupied Lana's body, the most important thing now was to get Lana back. "Because if you don't do that, I won't let you go." Hearing Clark's threat, Lana's expression changed. The smile on her face quickly disappeared, and she waved her hand fiercely at Clark. The next second, Clark was thrown out by an invisible force. With a bang, Clark smashed the furniture in the living room to pieces, and the flying wood chips flew everywhere. Clark, who was suddenly attacked, fell to the ground and turned over immediately without caring about the pain. Seeing Clark looked fine, Lana looked at him in surprise. "Clark, you are not only fast, but also not injured." Soon a smile appeared on her face. "Great, this makes things interesting." As she said, she silently chanted a spell, controlling the knives and various metal objects in the room to fly towards Clark. Clark immediately activated his thermal vision. The thermal vision hit the flying knives, melting them all into molten iron, dripping on the floor with a sizzling smell. "Wow." Seeing Clark's response, Lana asked him in shock, "What kind of witchcraft is this?" "Witchcraft? No, it's not witchcraft. Hey, listen. I don't want to hurt you." Before Clark finished speaking, Lana interrupted him. "Now it's my turn." As she silently chanted the spell, Clark's body immediately flew into the air uncontrollably. Lana stretched out her finger forward, invisibly controlling Clark to fly upward. "I have traveled through centuries and even across death itself to get here, with the purpose of completing what we are pursuing. I must get the magic stone, and I will not be stopped by your little tricks as a farm boy." Bang! Clark was controlled and smashed against the wall. The purple energy formed a thick and ferocious chain, which firmly locked his hands and made him unable to move. Clark, who was controlled by magic, said to Lana who was walking over, "Lana, you need help. I have also had the same feeling as you. The real self is suppressed. You know where you are." Hearing Clark's voice, Lana's face suddenly showed a struggling look. She covered her head, walked to Clark, and looked at him with confused eyes. "Clark." Seeing Lana wake up, Clark breathed a sigh of relief. "It's me, Lana." Just when he thought Lana had returned to normal, he didn't expect that Lana, who was confused, laughed out loud in the next second. "Sorry, Clark, I was just joking with you, but you should have seen your expression just now, from surprise to be at a loss in an instant. It's so funny, ha ha ha." Clark, he thought that the guy who occupied Lana's body might have something wrong. Lana squatted down and touched Clark's body with her fingers. "It's strange, you have the same power as the magic stone in your body," she asked Clark in confusion. "I can smell it." "Clark, you know where the magic stone is?" "Right, no." Clark shook his head weakly. "I've never seen such a thing." "You know where they are, Clark. Just tell me, I'll let you go." "And I know." She took a step towards Clark. "You like this girl, right?" Clark was stunned when he heard the other party's bold words. Seeing this, Lana smiled even more happily. By the way, I can tell you a secret. Because I am now occupying this body, I can clearly sense that this girl seems to be more impressed by your godfather than you. Clark was stunned when he heard the other party's words. For a long while, he recalled the previous communication between him and Lana. As a result, he found out to his dismay that Lana seemed to be more interested in the godfather. Chapter 141. It turns out that Superman is just a dream of a Kansas farmer like me. Thinking of this, Clark felt sick. Oh my god, if Azu knew about this, he would definitely laugh at him. Seeing Clark's distraught attitude, keeping his mouth shut and refusing to speak, Lana gradually lost her patience. She reached out and pressed Clark's head, her eyes glowing with a strange purple light, and said to Clark, "You must have seen the magic stone. Since you don't want to tell me, let me find it for you." As soon as the voice fell, Clark suddenly felt a strong pain attacking him, as if something was forced into his head and was stirring inside. He made a painful groan and wanted to break free from the other party's control. But because of the effect of magic, even if he had superpower, he couldn't break free at all. Using black magic to read Clark's memory, Lana soon found the relevant memory picture. Clark also saw the picture with Lana's operation. Boom! Accompanied by a strong explosion, a spaceship fell from the sky and landed on the farm. Strong light burst out in all directions with the explosion, and the whole ground was shaken. The explosion on the farm soon alarmed Jonathan and Martha. The two walked to the place where the spaceship crashed, saw the spaceship that had smashed a hole in the ground, and also saw the baby in the spaceship. The shocked couple looked at each other, walked down and took the baby out of the spaceship. Along with the baby, there was also a prismatic pure white crystal. When the couple took the baby away, they also put the crystal away. After seeing this memory, Lana suddenly let go of her hand and stood up. After losing Lana's magic control, Clark's headache disappeared instantly, and the picture projected by Lana in his mind also disappeared. Clark, who was already a little confused because of Lana's words, fell into an even more sluggish state after watching the picture projection just now. If the memory just now was his own, it means that he came here on a spaceship. Just like the murals in the caves of the Awachi tribe described, he fell from the rain of fire. Am I not an earthling? He was instantly surrounded by emotions of helplessness and fear. If he is not an earthling, he is an alien like the Martian hunter? Because he is an alien, will he hurt Azu and Loki in the future and betray the Godfather? Ignoring the messy Clark, Lana, who got the answer she wanted, picked up the magic book at hand with satisfaction and prepared to go to the Kent farm to snatch the magic stone from the Kent couple. However, before she left the room, she heard a bang sound of breaking through the air. The next moment, Peter appeared in front of her like teleportation. Startled, Lana immediately stepped back. But before she could react, the magic book in her hand was snatched away by Peter. Peter held the magic book in his hand and frowned and asked Clark next to him, "Clark, are you okay?" Unexpectedly, Peter would appear at the critical moment. Clark was stunned for a moment, and then hurriedly said, "I'm fine, Godfather, you?" Seeing Peter easily snatch the magic book from his hand, Lana asked nervously, "Are you a wizard, wizard?" "No, I don't know anything about magic." As Peter said, he opened the magic book casually, looked at the magic stone drawn on it, and shook his head. "So the purpose of your reincarnation is for this magic stone, right?" Intimidated by Peter's momentum, Lana did not act immediately, but nodded and said with a serious expression, "This is what I have always pursued. As long as I have this magic stone, my magic power will increase countless times, and then no one can stop me." Speaking of this, Lana's expression gradually became excited. "This is the magic stone we have been pursuing for centuries. Now it is in Kent Farm. As long as we cooperate, we will have the power to conquer the whole world." Conquer the world? Peter was speechless and looked at the crazy witch in front of him. "Just relying on a magic stone can conquer the world," Peter said to her. "You think this world is too simple. Your other companion does not have such great ambitions. She just wants love and money. I think this is what normal girls should pursue." Hearing Peter's words, Lana stared at him with disbelief. "Who did you meet?" She said her name was Elizabeth Pars. Peter said to him in a calm tone, "I have sent her back. Don't worry. Believe me, you will be reunited soon." "Who are you?" Lana stuttered after hearing Peter calmly say that he had sent Elizabeth away. "I am the godfather of this farm boy." As soon as the voice fell, a sacred white light gradually appeared in Peter's hand, and the magic book in his hand instantly burned. "No, Lana," who uttered a shrill wail, immediately knelt on the ground. Feeling the pull of her soul, her consciousness quickly fell into nothingness. Lana, who had fainted, fell headfirst to the ground. Peter moved in front of her at lightning speed and picked her up. Smelling the smell of alcohol from the girl's mouth, Peter frowned and asked Clark, who was stunned beside him, "Did you drink?" No, Godfather, it was the witch who occupied Lana's body who drank it." "I didn't drink it," Clark hurried to explain to Peter. "Peter, witches also love whiskey?" After Clark stabilized his emotions, he thanked Peter. "Thank you, Godfather. If you hadn't come, she might have gone to trouble my parents." "You're welcome," Peter said to him. "Next time you are in danger, if you are defeated, don't think about fighting hard, just use your super speed to escape." "I remember, Godfather," Clark nodded heavily. Lana woke up at this time. She felt dizzy and asked confusedly, "Where am I?" After opening her hazy eyes, she found herself being held by Peter, and her face immediately turned red. Looking down again, she found that she was wearing the skirt that she had never worn after buying it, but only tried on secretly at home occasionally. The whole person immediately felt bad. Burp. Just when she was in a mess, her body suddenly burped uncontrollably, and then a smell of alcohol rushed into her head. Under the strong stimulation, she fainted again. Looking at Lana who fainted in his arms, Peter sighed helplessly and put her on the sofa. Then he cast his eyes to the mess on the ground and rubbed his forehead, which was aching slightly. He had to find a reasonable excuse to explain to Neil. At night, at Patrick's farm, Peter hung up the call with Neil. "Godfather, what did Ms. Neil say?" Clark asked nervously. "I told her that the farm was robbed. When I rushed over, I beat the thief up, but he finally escaped. However, some furniture damage was inevitable." Clark scratched his head after listening to Peter's seemingly reasonable explanation. "Does Lana still remember what happened before? I mean, does she remember what happened after she was possessed by the witch?" "She said she doesn't remember." "That's good." Clark exhaled hard, and the stone in his heart finally fell. If Lana didn't remember, he wouldn't have to face her awkwardly in the future. After thinking for a while, he asked Peter, "Godfather, did I really come from outer space?" He had told Peter about the scene of the spaceship landing that he saw before. Peter sat on the sofa next to him, nodded and said, "Yes, you came from outer space." "Clark, then are you afraid of my alien identity?" "Godfather, no, of course not. Why do you think so?" Peter looked at him in surprise. "I'm afraid. If I come to Earth with a mission, the mission that my father once talked about, what if this mission is bad? What if I hurt you?" Clark said in a depressed mood, "Just like the dream I had about apocalypse. I'm afraid I will hurt you." "Godfather, I don't want to be an alien, and I don't want to bear the responsibility to do anything." Peter thought about it and asked him, "Didn't you say that you want to see the world and become a hero in the future?" "I don't know, but aliens can't be heroes. If I'm not an alien, I might be regarded as a hero if I save a cat from a tree, but if I'm an alien, Godfather, no matter what I do, I can't be a hero, because..." He exhaled uncomfortably and said to Peter, "People won't believe an alien?" "Godfather, I don't want to be a hero, I just want to be a farm boy." "Really?" Peter didn't expect Clark to care so much about his identity. He was a little surprised to see that the other party was depressed and even wanted to become a farm boy and never go out for the rest of his life. In order to prevent Superman from going astray, Peter tried to give him some chicken soup. After a cough, he said to Clark, "But, Godfather has a dream of being a Kansas farmer, and that dream needs you to realize it." "What dream?" "Godfather," Clark asked Peter with a blink. "A dream of Superman." Peter turned around and drew an S on Clark's chest. "Do you remember what S means?" "It's hope, Godfather." "Yes, hope. Whether you are an alien or an Earthling, whether you betray or stick to it, Godfather hopes that you will become the hope of many people, a symbol, a Superman, even if this dream is not realistic." Clark was stunned after listening to Peter's serious words. After a while, he said to Peter, "I understand. For Godfather, I will realize Godfather's dream of Superman." "Peter, so the appearance of Superman is because of his dream as a Kansas farmer?" "The new chapter may be late, so I rewrote it. You can read it tomorrow morning. Thank you for your subscription and voting, thank you." Chapter 142, Star-Lord is beaten, Azu's attitude. This is what we found in Clark's spaceship when it arrived. Jonathan handed the magic stone to Peter. "It followed Clark here, maybe, it has something to do with his life experience," Jonathan said in a complicated tone. "I think one day, Clark will embark on the path of pursuing his life goals. When that time comes, I will give it to Clark. While listening to Jonathan's words, Peter looked at the existence in his hand that the witch called magic stone. I guess it may be a key to open a secret fortress. He suddenly thought of the Kryptonian spaceship in the Arctic. Maybe this magic stone that followed Clark is the key to open that spaceship. Although the location of the spaceship cannot be determined, the Martian hunter can be searched in the Arctic. He instantly gave the exploration mission in his mind and found a suitable candidate. Secret fortress. Jonathan repeated the words Peter said and fell into deep thought. Martha, who was standing next to him, poured a cup of coffee for Peter and said, "Clark is not ready yet. I don't agree to hand this over to him so soon. He shouldn't take on too many responsibilities. At this age, I just hope he can play his role well in school and at home and enjoy life." Martha expressed her thoughts with melancholy. Yes, he doesn't have to take on anything now. Peter handed the magic stone to Jonathan and said, "Keep it. I know some people are eyeing it." Who? Jonathan asked him. Some witches. Peter told the two about the witch possessing Lana. After listening to Peter's story, the couple looked at each other. Witches? So they really exist? Martha looked at Peter in shock. Peter picked up the coffee cup and said to her, "Since aliens and rejuvenation can happen, I think witches won't be so incredible." Jonathan listened and looked at the crystal in his hand. "I never thought that it could be connected with a magic stone, the Philosopher's Stone." Then he asked Peter, "Does this mean that Clark's ancestors came to Earth a long time ago? So this kind of thing was discovered by witches?" Peter nodded, "Almost. The witches found that this crystal has a great effect on the addition of magic power, so they called it the Philosopher's Stone." After hesitating for a while, Jonathan handed the crystal to Peter. "I think it should be safer in your hands than in mine, Peter." Peter did not refuse and took the crystal from the other party. Looking at the faint light on it and feeling the temperature transmitted from the crystal, his eyes narrowed. At the same time, Star-Lord returned home after buying batteries in the supermarket. Light began to seep out of the blood of the night, the sun set, and the moon rose. Star-Lord listened to the Walkman and walked to a remote road. Looking up, he accidentally saw the North American pine on the roadside. This is a tree that grows in a dry environment, is stunted and twisted. Star-Lord remembered his father saying that this kind of tree that thrives after being completely burned by an accidental forest fire will strangle the bushes, so that they can continue to survive and completely defeat their short and humble competitors. He also remembered that the North American pine forest is the home of the New Jersey Devil, a donkey head and a chupacabra with bat wings. "I hope I won't encounter any chupacabra," Star-Lord muttered as he walked forward. But soon he noticed a group of teenagers gathered in front of him. They didn't know what to do, and laughed from time to time. Star-Lord walked in front of them curiously. The scene he saw shocked him immediately. Several people were using the art knife in their hands to kill frogs. The black man in the lead was wearing a white baseball cap. The art knife cruelly cut a frog's head. As he moved, blood spurted out, and the frog's head and lower body were cruelly separated and fell to one side. The guys around him not only did not stop him, but laughed and whistled instead. Star-Lord, who was furious at the cruel scene, shouted at the other party, "Stop! What are you doing?" Hearing Star-Lord's voice, everyone turned their heads. "None of your business, little fat man, get out of here." The black man wearing a baseball cap spit on the ground and raised the art knife to threaten Star-Lord. "Why are you doing this?" Star-Lord suppressed his anger and asked the other party, "Frogs are also lives, why are you doing this?" "Because," the baseball cap man walked to Star-Lord and threw the blood on the art knife on his face. "I am happy, how about it? Are you satisfied with this answer?" "You damn fat man." Facing the provocation of the other party, Star-Lord wiped the blood off his face and punched the other party without any hesitation. The vicious fist hit the other party's face heavily. With a bang, the baseball cap man's nose was directly hit by Star-Lord and bled. The baseball cap man, who was covering his nose, looked at his palm in disbelief, and found that it was covered with blood. He immediately wailed, "Damn it, beat him to death, come on, come on." The baseball cap man, covering his nose, shouted to his accomplice. Hearing the voice of his best friend, the remaining people rushed towards Star-Lord as if awakened from a dream. Star-Lord roared, grabbed the arm of the guy closest to him, and smashed him directly to the ground. Facing the guy rushing up from behind, he turned quickly, used the skills he learned from Martian Manhunter, grabbed the opponent's arm, and hit him hard in the chest with his elbow. The two sides soon fought together. Although Star-Lord did not use the power of the gods, he still beat the opponent back step by step. Just as the Frog Killer side was retreating step by step, another group of tall and strong guys who heard the sound nearby joined the battlefield. This group of senior guys who joined were the helpers of this group of Frog Killers. Bang! Star-Lord kicked a guy who rushed over and flew away. Then a guy hugged his back, and the guy who didn't follow martial ethics attacked him and punched him. Star-Lord took a step back, and was pounced on by a group of people, unable to move. His anger value continued to surge, and there was a white light flashing in his eyes, and the energy of the god was about to burst out. But the next second he suddenly saw a figure rushing into the crowd. After seeing the other party clearly, the light in Star-Lord's eyes disappeared instantly, and he looked at the other party with his mouth slightly open. He never thought that the one who came to help him fight was Azu. Didn't he just quarrel with him in the morning? Azu, who joined the battlefield, grabbed the arm of a tall and strong guy and punched him hard in the chest. With a bang, the other party immediately knelt on the ground and vomited. Azu, with an expressionless face, threw a punch at the young man closest to him. And the other party immediately fell to the ground and wailed. In less than 10 seconds, Azu beat all the people to the ground and groaned. Amid Star-Lord's shock and the wailing of the people lying on the ground, Zu walked to the baseball cap man, lowered his head and looked down at him, then stepped on his head. Feeling Zu's increasing strength, the baseball cap man screamed in pain. "No, please, please, don't do that, spare me," the baseball cap man screamed and begged Zu for mercy. Zu loosened his foot, looked at the dead frog next to him, and said to him, "Now get up and put the dead frog in your mouth, otherwise I will put it in your ass." Seeing Zu's ferocious look, the baseball cap man was afraid that he would really do that, so he could only huddle to the dead frog, tremblingly picked up a headless frog, and stuffed it into his mouth despite the nausea. Ugh, but before he could chew it twice, he couldn't help but vomit it out, along with the lunch he had eaten. Looking down at the man who was vomiting, Zu shook his head. "You are just an incompetent, ordinary, damn black man." After looking at the remaining frog killers who dared not breathe, Zu turned and left. Star-Lord, who had reacted, immediately followed him. "Thank you, John." Star-Lord walked to Zu and thanked him sincerely. No. 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 Zu turned around and shook his finger at Star-Lord. "I'm not helping you, Star-Lord. If you accidentally get into trouble and can't control your ability to kill these people, then Dad will be in trouble." Zu said that he had no intention of helping him. "I don't want to see Dad and the whole family flee to Mexico together." Although Zu said this, Star-Lord knew that there was a 90% chance that the other party was just being stubborn. "No matter what, you helped me, so I have to express my gratitude to you, brother." "Wait." Zu stretched out his hand to stop the other party, with a puzzled expression on his face. "What did you call me just now?" "John." "I called you John." Star-Lord coughed and pretended to be calm. "No, you seemed to call me brother just now." Zu walked over and put his hands to his ears. "Can you repeat it? You must have heard it wrong." "John, really? I have super hearing." "Super hearing doesn't necessarily mean you can hear all sounds." Star-Lord was playing rogue. "Whatever, but next time you encounter something like this, I suggest you freeze your brain so that you won't be impulsive like a fool." Zu let out more breath in a good mood and said to Star-Lord. At night, Padrick Farm. Peter just got home and saw a police car and several strangers parked at the door. "Officer Ryan." Peter looked at the policeman he hadn't seen for a long time and asked him puzzledly, "What's the matter?" "You should ask them." Ryan cast his eyes on Star-Lord and Zu next to him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143, In Memory of Star-Lord's Hero Badge. "What's wrong?" Peter looked at Star-Lord and Zu, who were a little uneasy, and then the Martian Manhunter came out of the room. "Your two sons, John and Peter, had a conflict with others." Officer Ryan pointed to several men and women with unfriendly expressions next to him. "These are the parents of the students who were beaten, fighting." Peter shrugged and said, "There are always some bumps between boys. Isn't it normal to fight?" But John and Peter caused 4 people to have facial soft tissue contusions, and one of them even had a broken nose. The 2 of them also forced someone to eat a dead frog. "Really?" Peter looked at Zu and Star-Lord in surprise. "Why did you two fight?" "Star-Lord and John," Seeing Peter's inquiring look, the uneasy Star-Lord was about to explain, but Zhu took the lead and said, "Dad, I did it," and Star-Lord didn't participate much. Seeing Zhu took the responsibility first, Star-Lord was stunned. "Why did you fight?" Peter frowned and asked Zhu. Zhu took a deep breath and said, "Because they were cruelly killing frogs, I tried to stop them, but they started it first." "So, you were acting in self-defense." After listening to this, Peter turned around and said to Ryan, "Officer Ryan, there is no doubt that facing the siege of more than a dozen people, John and Star-Lord were passively acting in self-defense. I don't think they should be blamed." As he spoke, he looked at the parents who were negotiating with a Martian hunter. "On the contrary, I think those who bully the minority with the majority should be held accountable," Ryan said helplessly to Peter. "I have never seen self-defense that can beat people like this." Peter continued calmly, "John and Star-Lord are just born with supernatural powers." "Born with supernatural powers?" Officer Ryan glanced at him. "I believe you are the one with a brain disease." He coughed and was about to continue talking to Peter when he suddenly heard a noise. It seemed that the Martian hunter and the parent stopped arguing and suddenly became fierce. Peter, who heard the quarrel, frowned and looked away. A middle-aged woman who looked sarcastic pointed at Martian hunter's nose and said angrily, "I don't care if you are a black or not. What I mean is that no matter what, my child is injured now. You must apologize to us today." "Not only an apology, but also necessary compensation." Martian hunter shrugged helplessly, and said to her with some tiredness, "Madam, I think you should be reasonable, because it was your child who started the fight first. John and Star-Lord were just defending themselves." "Asshole, can self-defense beat my son like that?" Hearing this, Peter's expression gradually sank, and he walked forward quickly. "I am the father of 2 children, you can tell me if you have any questions." "Very good, I need you to compensate us, and apologize to us," the mean-looking woman said loudly to Peter. After the voice fell, the parents who came with her also echoed, "That's right, my child's face was broken. You must pay for the medical expenses, otherwise we won't leave." Zhu, who was watching everything, immediately became anxious. "It's not our fault, why should we pay?" Martian hunter looked at the indignant Zhu, a little worried that he would do something out of line, and immediately walked up and grabbed his arm. "John," Peter stopped Zhu from continuing to speak, looking at him dissatisfied. After being glared at by Peter, Zhu immediately became honest. "Humph, you are so uneducated." Seeing this, the woman immediately looked at Zhu viciously. "What are you talking about?" Peter looked at the other person with a cold look. After being glared at by Peter's dangerous eyes, the woman immediately shut up. She was really afraid that the other party would do something reckless. "Compared to your group of even more uneducated children, I think my children are not bad. At least, they will not wantonly kill lives." At this point, Peter's tone became sharp. "But you come to make trouble without knowing right or wrong. Do you think I am easy to bully?" The woman was stared at by Peter and lost her confidence, and whispered, "Our children were beaten like this. It's not us who are causing trouble." Peter pretended not to hear. "If you continue to pester me, I think the Animal Protection Association and local laws will tell you what is right and wrong." Listening to Peter's rapid-fire, threatening words, these parents who originally wanted to claim compensation were suddenly silent. "You know, the local Animal Protection Association has real power. If they are really held accountable, the fines that each of them will have to pay will definitely not be few." Everyone looked at Officer Ryan for help. Unexpectedly, Officer Ryan pretended to be watching the scenery and turned a blind eye to everyone's requests for help. In the end, the parents had no choice but to leave under the judgment of interests. After seeing that all those damn guys had left, Zhu excitedly stepped forward. "Dad, you were so cool just now." Peter was a little speechless. The annoying kid made him worry every other day. Star-Lord, who had been silent all the time, finally plucked up the courage and said to Peter, "Dad, it's actually not Zhu's fault. I was the one who started the fight with those guys, and it was Zhu who came to help me." "Yes, I know, I knew it from the beginning." Peter heard what Star-Lord said and reached out to touch his hair. "Not only humans, but also Rocket Raccoon and Frog. They are also lives. Even if they die, they should not be killed like this. So, that's why I couldn't control myself. I almost released the power in my body." Peter put his hand on Star-Lord's head and rubbed it. "If you don't control and use that power, they will be killed, and you will become the kind of person you hate." Seeing Star-Lord listening carefully, Peter continued to say to him with satisfaction, "So, no matter what the situation is, remember one thing, don't be controlled by anger." "I know, Dad," Star-Lord nodded obediently. The next day, early morning. Talon Club. Peter and Martian Manhunter discussed the Kryptonian spaceship. You said there is a Kryptonian spaceship in the Arctic. After listening to Peter's story, Martian Manhunter was shocked. Yes, the origin of that spaceship is related to Clark, Peter explained to him. In the future, Clark will find his mission from here. There are all the cutting-edge technologies of Krypton there. If it is obtained by others, it may cause unexpected troubles. I can't leave the farm for the time being, so I hope you can go to the North Pole and find this spaceship. Why do you know this? Martian Hunter asked him curiously. Have you been to the North Pole? Or are you actually a Kryptonian? In fact, my real identity is the Prince of the Speedy Saiyans. My goal is to conquer the Earth and then sell it for a good price, Peter said seriously. Martian Hunter knew that the other party was talking nonsense. He picked up the wine glass and said to the other party with a serious expression, forget about the Prince of Saiyans. What I am worried about is whether you will really cause disputes in the galaxy. Clark once had a dream that his rebellion caused the galaxy to burn. Will you really cause a galactic war? Peter, hearing the other party's serious questioning, Peter was a little speechless. He just made a Warhammer joke to the other party, but he didn't expect that the other party actually believed it and took it seriously. It was all Clark's fault. If he hadn't told him about the dream, maybe Martian Manhunter wouldn't believe it as much as he does now. Of course not, Peter coughed. Don't forget, I am still a human being, so I will never betray humans. Martian Manhunter looked into Peter's eyes, as if he wanted to see his heart clearly. Hi, Mr. Patrick. Lana happened to come over to serve wine. Peter took the whiskey from the other party and thanked him, but the other party immediately ran away with a red face. Feeling a little puzzled, he looked at the counter and suddenly saw a blue frog-shaped keychain. He asked the bar and learned that it was a souvenir given by the bar, so he asked for one. Noon. Patrick Farm. Star-Lord returned to the room and suddenly found a blue frog keychain on the desk. Puzzled, he picked up the frog keychain and found a note on it. In memory of Star-Lord saving Smallville's frogs on September 14th, gift from Peter Patrick. Chapter 144, A Divine Tree Falling from the Sky? Half a year later. Peter parked the car and faced Smallville Square. The whole square seemed to be bathed in the glow of the setting sun. Citizens stopped and watched, and a drop of orange fruit juice melted into the orange ocean of milkshakes, drinking, singing, watching small shows, and buying all the tacky and worthless knickknacks they could find. Well-trained cats performed pantomimes, pirates juggled rum bottles, magical people performed fire breathing, and people who were stretched like taffy performed weightlifting barbells. The annual Harvest Festival gathered almost everyone in the town. Peter brought Azu and Star-Lord to participate in the festival celebration. Star-Lord, who participated for the first time, was particularly excited and looked around curiously. Peter walked forward and looked down at his watch. The pointer of the watch was getting closer and closer to the end. According to his speculation, the third baby will be delivered in about a week. I don't know what type of baby the system will send this time. Is it a boy or a girl? He hoped to send a magician, so that he would not be too passive when facing enemies like witches and Lucifer. However, he had already investigated and found that there was no meteor shower in Kansas in the past month. Could it be that the upcoming meteor shower would not be detected by the weather system? Peter stared at the hands on his watch and fell into deep thought. Hi, Uncle Patrick, he was thinking when he suddenly heard a voice greeting him. He looked up and found that it was Lana and Neil. Lana, who was wearing a green dress and had a slender figure, had grown taller in half a year. Good morning, Peter. Neil came over to greet Peter. Good morning, Neil, and Lana, Peter greeted the two. Star-Lord seems to have lost weight recently. Neil smiled and touched Star-Lord's head. Praised by Neil, Star-Lord proudly held his head high. But after taking a look at his protruding belly, the whole person quickly deflated like a balloon that had been punctured. Ahem, Peter glanced at Star-Lord, who was in a bad mood after being hit, and thought to himself, you are talking about something else. How is the business of the Talon Club recently? Peter changed the subject and asked Neil about the bar. It's so-so, Neil shrugged at him, but the business in the town has not been very good recently. Compared to this, the bar is actually not bad. Peter talked with Neil and Lana, while Star-Lord and Azu slipped out. In the crowded square, Star-Lord found a sign, Psychic, tell your future. Thinking of the last time, the fortune teller said that she would choke to death, Star-Lord had the idea of fortune telling in his mind again. He made up his mind and looked at the owner of the sign. He found that the other party was a woman with a gypsy scarf wrapped around her head. The woman saw Star-Lord coming over and said, "Hey, kid, I'm so sorry, I haven't opened yet." "Well, it's okay, I'll give you the money," Star-Lord said very confidently. He waved a $10 bill in his hand. "You can read my omens, or my cards, or smell my pheromones, or whatever you want." Faced with Star-Lord's request, the woman shrugged, as if she could easily achieve her goal without any effort. "Well, I am conquered by your money." She sat cross-legged, lifted up a piece of tie-dyed cloth covering the crystal ball, and then opened a carved wooden box and took out a stack of tarot cards. A death card stood up, and behind the inky black cloak on the card was a jagged wooden head, holding a long-handled scythe like a human harvesting wheat. "You can call me Miss Hannah, and I can tell fortunes through this crystal ball," the other party said to Star-Lord, "or I can read your cards, or your palm lines. It's your choice, kid, I can do both," Star-Lord said as he threw $10 to the woman. This was one of his few pocket money, which made him feel a little painful. The bleached blonde lady took the banknotes handed over by Star-Lord with practiced movements, and then took out the tarot cards. She took out a small bag, and Star-Lord smelled a strong smell of herbs. "This is a bag with purification function. I have put sage, angelica and fennel in it." As she spoke, she suddenly made an exaggerated movement and looked at Star-Lord in surprise. "You are facing the danger of your life now, child." The woman suddenly looked nervous, and Star-Lord was also frightened by her. She cleared her throat and began to shuffle the tarot cards, then handed the stack of cards in her hand to Star-Lord. "Cut the cards, child." At the edge of the square, the sun had melted into a sticky gasoline line, gathering on the horizon. Star-Lord swallowed nervously, carefully divided the stack of tarot cards into two halves, and put one of the stacks back in reverse. The gypsy woman took the tarot cards and began to flip them off. "This is what is called the Celtic cross," Star-Lord asked him in confusion. "What does it mean?" The woman turned over the first card. "Seven of Wands," she said with a hint of bewitching tone. The image on the card was a man with curly hair standing on a hill, holding a cane, a multi-section object that looked like a cave monster. He was trapped in a prison surrounded by multi-section sticks. "What does that mean?" "It means that you are about to face great difficulties in all aspects." Star-Lord thought for a moment and said, "Dad said that everyone faces great difficulties. This is what people often say. Hey, you see, this is reality. We are all surrounded by annoying people and shortcomings." He didn't think it was a big deal. The woman paused and continued to turn over the next card. This card showed, a goddess looked up and gazed at the five-pointed star in the sky above the meadow, with sheep grazing nearby. "Star Pentacles," the gypsy woman said in surprise, as if Star-Lord had just won the metaphysical lottery. "When you encounter difficulties in your life, hope and faith will be with you, and you will find that you will be like this goddess, embracing optimism as tightly as the stars in the sky." Star-Lord felt that this card was in line with his life. He said to her, "When my life encounters difficulties, my father is usually with me." The gypsy woman looked at Star-Lord in surprise, thinking that this little fat boy in front of her unexpectedly has his own understanding of life. Then she turned over the last card. Star-Lord looked at the card in surprise and asked her, "What card is this?" The card showed another little boy with a flowery hair hanging upside down by his heels, dangling upside down on a tree. She said to Star-Lord, "This is a hanged man. He expresses difficulties, pain and powerlessness. It means that your life will encounter a powerful setback." "Star-Lord, why? What's on your mind?" Peter asked the depressed Star-Lord on the way back from the festival. "He went to have his fortune told," Azu told Peter nearby. "Dad, now Star-Lord can be considered a senior fortune-telling enthusiast." "No, I'm not," Star-Lord quickly explained to Peter. Dad, I just wanted to confirm with her whether I would be successful in losing weight." "So what did she say?" "She didn't say anything. She just said that I would encounter a setback, and it would be dangerous." "Did she really say that?" Peter didn't expect the other party to be so unscrupulous. "Is it really okay to scare a child like this? Aren't you afraid that you will expose his stall?" "She's not telling the truth, Star-Lord," Peter comforted him. "This so-called psychic art, they just look at the cards, and then use the most mediocre explanation to fool you. Even if it's not tarot cards, they can use a flashy crystal ball, or observe the lines on your palm, and the things they observe are actually the same." "Dad, I'm not afraid," Star-Lord said to Peter, "because I believe that Dad will help me, so it will be fine." We trust each other and won't be defeated by setbacks, Star-Lord flattered Peter a little. That's good, Peter said, stroking Star-Lord's hair. Zhu, who was leaning his hand against the car window, hummed when he saw this scene. At night, Peter, Star-Lord and Zhu had dinner together. In addition to being busy looking for a spaceship in the Arctic, Martian Manhunter has also met a fellow Martian, which has caused him to rarely appear on the farm recently. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and the things on the table were shaken to the ground. The bottle of juice fell down, and the juice inside was about to spill. At the critical moment, Zhu grabbed the container at lightning speed. Dad, Star-Lord, who was eating, swallowed nervously and looked at the shaking ceiling above his head. Is it an earthquake? Although it was an earthquake, he was not nervous. Whether it was his father or Zhu, even if the house collapsed in an earthquake, he believed that everyone would be fine. Boom! Before Peter could speak, a dull crash sound of boom was heard. Then smoke and dust attacked the room from the yard, as if something had fallen on the farm. Peter immediately moved to the courtyard, and Zhu and Star-Lord followed him as fast as they could. The moment he entered the courtyard, his sight was attracted by a lush ash tree that suddenly appeared. The ash tree that appeared inexplicably in the courtyard gave people a feeling that it had already existed here, emitting a hazy glow that made it impossible to look directly at it. Peter blinked and found that the ash tree had become ordinary again. Thank you readers for your subscription and voting support. The third chapter is still a bit late, you can read it tomorrow morning. I have rewritten the third chapter again, and it took a whole day. I am so sad. Chapter 145, Is there a small world in the sacred tree? The secret of Zhu and Star-Lord. What is this, Dad? Star-Lord swallowed his saliva and asked Peter in shock. A tree fell from the sky? Is there anything more incredible than this? Zhu looked around suspiciously. Someone must have secretly dropped it? Looking up at the sky, he did not find an airplane or anything else above his head. Dad, Zhu walked over in confusion, is this an ash tree? Yes, it looks like a European ash tree. What made Peter feel strange was that European ash trees usually appear in Northern Europe. How could they appear here? Could it be that this time it was not a spaceship that fell from the sky, but a tree? What use is a tree to me? He looked down at the watch on his wrist and found that the pointer had not reached the end. After confirming that the other party was not a baby sent to him by the system, Peter breathed a sigh of relief. If this tree was a baby sent to him by the system, he would curse directly. Dad, I can kill it. When Zhu saw Peter walking towards the ash tree, for his safety, he quickly said, this may be a prank by a magician, just like the Lucifer we met before. His eyes turned red instantly. Before Peter could stop him, the laser in Zhu's eyes suddenly shut out. With a bang, the thermal vision suddenly hit the ash tree. To Peter's surprise, Zhu not only failed to shoot through the tree, but was bounced back by the ash tree. Without waiting for Zhu to fall to the ground, Peter moved in front of him at lightning speed and caught him before he fell to the ground. Zhu groaned after hitting Peter hard. Are you okay, John? Peter put Zhu down and asked him. I'm fine, Dad. Zhu felt a hot feeling on his face after failing to attack and being knocked away. Nodding, Peter put Zhu down, then frowned and walked towards the tree that appeared inexplicably, gently placing his hand on it. Seeing Peter's action, Zhu and Star-Lord prepared to stop him. Unexpectedly, the moment Peter touched the ash tree, he was not bounced away. A vast consciousness instantly rushed into Peter's spiritual sea, as if his spirit was connected to a world. The next second, the scene in front of Peter suddenly changed. The familiar farm in front of him disappeared, and then he appeared in a snowy environment. The biting cold wind hid him, and the wind and snow whistled around. Standing in the unfamiliar valley, Peter looked at the deserted environment in front of him in shock. Was it this ash tree that teleported him here? Or did he enter the inside of the ash tree? After looking at the surrounding environment for a while, he decided to keep going forward to see what was waiting for him in this space. In the unfamiliar environment, the wind and snow were mixed, as if the sky was torn apart, and endless white snow fell from the sky, covering the outline of the distant mountains. The strong wind roared like a beast, filling the whole world. Peter walked in the wind and snow for an unknown period of time, but he still didn't see anyone. Just as he stopped to look around, he suddenly heard someone calling his name in the snow. Dad. The moment Peter heard the voice, the environment in front of him suddenly changed. The ice and snow disappeared from his sight, and he stood in front of the ash tree again. Taking his hand away from the ash tree, Peter looked at the familiar farm and the two naughty children standing next to it in surprise. "I'm back, Dad. You've been here all the time and haven't gone anywhere," Star-Lord said to him worriedly. "You just touched the ash tree and didn't move. We thought you had an accident." "Dad, are you okay?" "No." Peter stared at the ash tree in front of him and fell into deep thought. It should be his spirit that entered the inner world of this ash tree just now. It seems that this tree should be some kind of powerful existence, which contains a domain world inside and can pull himself in. Is this space magic? Or an illusion? Or did the other party really pull himself into its small world? He looked at the watch, hoping that the system would give him a prompt. Unfortunately, the watch will only transmit information to him when the pointer reaches the end. Now no matter how he calls the system, he can't wake it up. While Peter was staring at his watch and thinking about countermeasures, Star-Lord curiously walked to the ash tree and reached out to touch the trunk. Peter looked up and saw Star-Lord touching the trunk, looking like nothing happened. He asked him in surprise, "You touched it and it didn't react?" "Star-Lord, what reaction?" "Dad," Star-Lord blinked, "the bark feels rough, nothing special." "Like this?" Peter nodded and asked Azu to touch the trunk again. Although he was a little scared, Azu still carefully reached out to the trunk at Peter's request. This time the ash tree did not bounce him out. Azu touched the trunk and didn't feel anything special. Peter looked at the two people's actions and immediately understood. This magical tree can only enter its world when you touch it. In other words, this thing must be sent by the system. Could it be that the arrival of the next baby is related to this tree? He suddenly had an absurd guess. The next baby will be born from the tree. If this is true, when the baby asks where he comes from, should he tell him or her that he grew from a tree outside? Wouldn't this have a serious impact on the child's young mind? His thoughts fell into a mess. A few minutes later, Peter looked down at the time, and it was about to enter the second half of the night. Shaking his head, he said to the two naughty children, "Okay, it's getting late, go back and rest, and we'll talk about the tree tomorrow, in Star-Lord's room." After closing the door, Star-Lord took out a branch he picked up under the ash tree. After looking at the branch with a strange shape and a different feeling, Star-Lord put it in the drawer. Since Azu's heat vision can be bounced back by it, it means that its sturdiness is not low. Collect it now, maybe it will be useful when making something in the future. For example, I can make an armor that can resist Azu's heat vision. While thinking, he was about to close the drawer. But his eyes accidentally caught a glimpse of the blue frog that his father had given him before. Star-Lord was stunned for a moment, then carefully took out a blue frog, placed it next to the pillow, wiped it gently, and went to bed. In Azu's room on the other side. Azu stood by the window, looking at the ash tree that appeared inexplicably, and always felt uncomfortable in his heart. Not only because the other party made him lose face in front of his father, but also because he always felt that this thing in front of him gave him a very threatening feeling. No matter who it is impossible to shake his determination to inherit his father's farm. Shaking his head, he forced himself to get rid of this strange feeling in his mind. After sitting on the bed, Azu looked left and right. Then quietly walked to the door, confirmed that Peter did not go upstairs, and Star-Lord next door had rested, then got under the bed as quickly as possible, and took out a cool magazine from it. Most of the content in the cool magazine is a photo of movie stars. The sexy and mature female star posed a charming smile in front of the camera, and then was recorded by the camera, and then presented in front of Azu. Puffing up his cheeks and slowly spitting out like a big mushroom, Zu suppressed his excitement and flipped through the magazine like a thief. I must be a fool in the mirror world. If I knew a shapeshifter, I would ask him to turn into all kinds of female stars for me to see, Zu complained about himself in another world. The next day, early in the morning, Clark came to Patrick's farm and looked at the ash tree that suddenly appeared in shock. He remembered that when he came here the day before yesterday, there was no tree here. Could it be that there was some deviation in his memory? "Godfather," Clark asked Peter in confusion, "is this the new tree you planted?" Peter got up early today and has been looking up information to find out the origin of this tree. But after searching for a long time, he couldn't find any relevant information. "Yes, it's newly transplanted," Peter put down the book in his hand and said to him casually. Clark nodded. He felt that the tree in front of him was particularly imposing. "Godfather, Dad said that there was an earthquake in Smallville yesterday. Are you okay here?" "It's okay, Clark. The earthquake here is not obvious." Peter, who knew what was going on, coughed and said to the other party, That's good. After Clark confirmed that the farm was fine, he walked over hesitantly. Godfather, are you free? He looked around and asked Peter in a low voice. What's wrong? I recently dreamed of flying. Clark told his troubles. I dreamed that I flew to the ceiling, and then fell on the bed with a thump, and then, he said embarrassedly, I crushed the bed. Godfather, can I learn to fly like Zoo? Clark asked unconfidently. Of course you can. Flying means you are taller, or you are gradually awakening the ability to fly, Clark, Peter said to him. But, Godfather, I tried it before, and I couldn't fly, Clark said with a frown. Why can I fly in my dreams, but not in reality? That's because, Peter stood up and patted his shoulder. Because your unconsciousness can throw away all shackles, but in reality you have many things to consider, such as your fear of heights, right? Clark said a little unnaturally. Yes, Godfather, I am a little afraid of heights. When he was sharing his secret of fear of heights with Peter, footsteps were heard outside the farm. Clark looked at the person who came and found that the other person was his classmate. Lana. Chapter 146. Clark uses the tractor as a deadly weapon. Hi, Clark. Lana didn't expect Clark to be here. She was stunned for a moment and greeted him. Good morning, Lana. Clark's face gradually turned red. Although the two of them were somewhat familiar with each other, Clark was still easily nervous when he saw each other. Lana saw that the other party was getting more and more nervous, and she also felt a little embarrassed. The two faced each other. In order to break the awkward situation, Lana was about to say something to Clark, and Peter came out. Hey, Uncle Padraic. Seeing Peter come out, Lana breathed a sigh of relief. This is the baked cookies made by Aunt Neil. As she spoke, she handed the basket to Peter. Aunt asked me to bring it here specifically. Thank Uncle Padraic for helping us apply for the subsidy fund before. Peter heard from Neil yesterday that the horse farm business was not doing well, so he mentioned the subsidy fund of Leno Luthor to the other party. No need to thank me specifically, Lana. I just mentioned it casually. Peter took the baked cookies, and although he said you're welcome, he still accepted it without hesitation. Then I'll go back first, Uncle Padraic, Lana said to Peter obediently. Go, Clark, take Lana home, Peter said to Clark who was standing stupidly beside him. Oh, fine, Godfather. Clark woke up as if from a dream and hurried to Lana's side. Looking at this slow boy, Peter sighed helplessly. He estimated that according to Clark's slow reaction, it might be difficult for him to pursue Lana in this life. It's better to lie down and wait for his true love Louise Lane. Thinking of Lois Lane, and comparing it with Lana Land's name, Peter suddenly found that the abbreviations of these two names are LL. Is Clark naturally more fond of LL? Stroking his chin beard, he suddenly thought that the abbreviation of Lex Luthor's name is also LL. No wonder Clark, this kid, will love and hate Lex in the future. In the evening, Peter stood in front of the ash tree in the courtyard, observing this magical tree. Hesitantly, he was about to reach out his hand to the ash tree, wanting to enter the inner world of the ash tree again. Dad, Star-Lord walked towards him with tears in his eyes and his head swollen like a pig's head. Seeing the other party's miserable appearance, Peter was stunned. A few minutes later, he roughly understood the ins and outs of the matter. Peter took a large cotton ball, dipped a drop of pink calamine lotion, and applied it on Star-Lord's red scar. This naughty kid didn't know why he went to mess with bees, but he was stung and his face was swollen. I told you not to run back there, Peter rebuked him helplessly. They never bothered me before, Star-Lord said this was an accident. Peter explained to Star-Lord, they are yellow jacket bees in September. They know that winter is coming and their time is coming, so they become anxious and restless. I think my fingers have grown fat, Star-Lord said with a sad face. Because they are swollen, Star-Lord, he saw the slippery cotton like a rabbit's tail, dipped in calamine lotion, and applied to his arm. The phantom pain came, and Star-Lord subconsciously wanted to move it away. Peter's palm slapped over at once. Ouch, Star-Lord almost cried again and quickly took his hand away. Don't move, Peter scolded. It hurts there, Dad. Peter just frowned and continued to apply liquid to other wounds. So, you deliberately provoked them, right? Peter asked him. Star-Lord nodded and said, not really, Dad. I went to the woods behind the house and found a hole under a rotten woodpile with some bees. They always reminded me of those little jet planes, the little evil jet planes in cartoons. Their hole was blocked by something, and I tried to pull it open, Star-Lord said frustratedly. Then, all of a sudden, they were all in the air. They all surrounded me, got into my shirt and stung me. Peter nodded and asked him, then what? Then I appeared here. Star-Lord's eyes were a little wise at this time. You shouldn't be nosy, Peter said to him. I want to help them, Dad. Peter shook his head and said to him, there is a fabricated gospel, the gospel of Nazareth, in which Jesus said, those enemies hurt God, and those hunters eventually became the hunted. You thought you were a kind hunter, but in fact, you turned from a hunter into the hunted. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry doesn't change your current situation as a pighead. After Peter applied the medicine to Star-Lord, he said to him, okay, after a few days of rest, the swelling on your body will go away. Thank you, Dad. Star-Lord thanked Peter. Then he took a deep breath and asked Peter, Dad, why can't I have strong defense like John and Clark, so that I won't be stung by bees? You have different abilities, and everyone has different talents. Besides, Peter was silent for a moment, and continued to say to him, sometimes, the ability of John and Clark is also a curse. Curse? Star-Lord blinked in confusion, a little confused as to why his father said that. Isn't it cool to have that kind of power? Soon, what happened to Clark the next day made Star-Lord understand why this ability is sometimes a curse. The next day, early in the morning, the sky was clear, and Zoo and Star-Lord helped Peter pile the grain into the barn. Clark, who was next to him, helped repair the farm fence. He picked up the pole and with a little effort, the pole was directly inserted into the ground. Hey, Clark, help lift the tractor, it's pressing down on the fork, I can't reach it alone. Zoo asked Clark to help lift the tractor a little. No problem, Clark smiled and patted the dust off his hands. When he came to the tractor, he bent down and stretched his hand up. Bang! In Zoo and Star-Lord's stunned eyes, the tractor and the mud stuck on the tires were thrown directly into the sky by Clark. The three of them watched the tractor flying farther and farther, stunned in place. It was not until the tractor turned into a light spot in the sky and disappeared that the three realized that they had caused a big disaster. Dad, on the other side. Peter was a little mentally weak because of the ash tree. Wanting to relax, he turned on the TV. The TV was broadcasting weather news. Ian Jones reports from Kansas City, Kansas. Scientists point out that what we see today is an astronomical phenomenon that is rare in a century. Hearing an astronomical phenomenon that is rare in a century, Peter immediately became interested and cast his eyes on the TV screen. Is it a meteor shower? But soon the result disappointed him. The host continued to broadcast, because of the intense activity of sunspots, it will cause strong electromagnetic waves. According to scientists, a meteor hit the sun, causing changes on the surface of the sun, which will have a serious impact on the Earth's magnetic field. Listening to the host's broadcast, he fell into deep thought. Is there sunspot activity? Dad? Something happened. Star-Lord's panicked voice came. What's wrong? Peter stood up and looked at Star-Lord, whose head was still a little swollen. It's Clark. Clark threw the tractor into the sky. Star-Lord said something that shocked Peter. At the same time, on the entrance road to Smallville Town, Leno Luthor of the Luthor Group was standing at the intersection and making a phone call. I told you, Lex, our relationship doesn't need to be so stiff. I'm your father, and I won't hurt you. He was worrying about how to deal with his relationship with his son Lex Luthor, when he heard a boom. The ground was shaken and a deafening sound came. He turned around and found that his car was smashed into a pancake by a tractor that fell from the sky. He was stunned and it took him a long time to react. He looked up at the cloudless sky, then looked around to confirm that there was no shadow of anyone. What happened? Did I see a ghost? Half an hour later, Peter rushed to the scene with John, Star-Lord, and Clark, who had caused trouble. When he saw Peter appear, Leno Luthor's face was quite interesting. The female patrol officer next to him saw Peter coming and walked towards him with a license plate. Are you Mr. Peter Patrick? I am. Peter tried to pretend to be calm. Can you explain why your tractor fell on the main road leading out of town? Okay, that's right, ahem, Peter said, thinking frantically. He had to think of a less ridiculous reason. Just then, Leno Luthor came over and said to the patrolman, I saw the scene. It was thrown from a truck. Seeing Leno's help, Peter immediately added, yes, someone stole our tractor. When we were about to chase them, maybe they had an accident when they were fleeing in a hurry. You mean, the tractor fell from the robber's car? Peter nodded. That's it, although the female patrolman didn't quite believe this explanation. Since both of them said so, she could only ask a few questions and leave in disappointment. Thank you, Leno. After the police left, Peter thanked the other party. He could understand why the other party concealed it for him. This guy seemed to suspect that he had superpowers, so he kept trying to figure it out. Now that the tractor fell from the sky and smashed the other party's car, the other party was probably more suspicious. Chapter 147 Hanging the Naughty Child on the World Tree. You're welcome, Leno Luthor said to him calmly. Although he pretended to be calm on the surface, he was already in a state of panic. He always thought that Peter's family were not ordinary people, but he didn't expect that he still underestimated them. Even the incredible thing of a tractor falling from the sky happened. Did Peter throw the tractor from the sky? Mr. Patrick, in the end, he couldn't help it and said to Peter hesitantly, Actually, I just saw the tractor falling from the sky and then smash my car. Peter's eyebrows moved. Really? So you didn't see the thief just now? Yes, I didn't see it. It's incredible, Mr. Patrick, you really don't know. Peter shook his head at him and said, Actually, I don't know what happened, Mr. Leno. Leno nodded hesitantly, looked at Peter, and then looked at Clark who was uneasy next to him. He could feel that Peter must be hiding something. Anyway, Mr. Leno, the tractor is my car after all. I will compensate you for the damage caused to you. Peter said he would compensate for his car. No, it's okay. Leno rejected Peter's compensation proposal. It's none of your business, and my car is insured. Since the other party said that no compensation was needed, Peter did not force it. After talking to the other party for a few words, seeing that the tractor was also towed away by the road rescue personnel, Peter also drove away with the three naughty children. Leno Luthor stared at the back of Peter's car, his eyes narrowed slightly. He naturally didn't believe Peter's claim that he didn't know. He lowered his head and looked at the scattered parts on the ground, and he exhaled deeply. Who is Peter Patrick? How many secrets are hidden in him? Leno Luthor felt that this guy had more and more secrets. He had a feeling that he was now like Icarus with wings glued on, approaching the sun. The closer to the sun, the easier it is for the wax on the wings to melt, and the closer to Peter, it seems to be more dangerous. In the car, Clark, with his head down and a frustrated face, apologized to Peter. Sorry, Godfather, I didn't mean it. I know, Clark. Peter didn't blame the other party's idea. He saw the news about the sunspot activity in the morning, and guessed that this was probably the reason why Clark's ability was out of control. Although Peter looked like he didn't care, as he was not happy. After all, this tractor was also the property of the farm. Now it was smashed by Clark, which was a big loss for the farm. Dad said that you can control your ability, Clark, but now it seems that you can't do it, Azu said unhappily. If you are unlucky this time, Leno Luthor will be smashed into a meat pie by the tractor. Clark's face was a little embarrassed by Azu's preaching and sarcasm. This can't be blamed on Clark. While driving, Peter said to several people, a meteorite hit the sun yesterday, causing the sun to have the most intense sunspot activity in history. I know about this, Dad, Star-Lord said to Peter, and the TV said that sunspots can cause communication failures and unstable electricity. Clark heard this and felt that it was very similar to his current situation. Godfather, I feel the same way. Sometimes I have no strength. I feel very tired in the morning, but sometimes I feel very strong and out of control. He told Peter about the changes in his body. Peter nodded. Clark, this shows that your power comes from the sun, Star-Lord added, like some type of solar cell. Does my power come from the sun? Clark listened to Peter's words and stretched his head to look into space. Godfather, am I from the sun? Staring at the sun, he asked Peter curiously. No, you are not from the sun. Peter stepped on the brakes and stopped at the traffic light. Don't worry too much about where you come from, Clark. What's important is how you will live here. Don't forget, didn't you say you will always be a farm boy from Kansas? Peter tried not to mention Clark's identity now, so as not to distract him from it. Yes, Godfather, Clark muttered to himself, I am an earthling now, a farm boy from Kansas, Patrick Farm. Clark got out of the car and walked towards the living room. As a result, he walked faster and faster, and disappeared from the spot with a whoosh. Azu and Star-Lord got off the car and looked at each other. Clark's ability was completely out of control. Peter saw Clark's super speed activated and wanted to catch up with him, but he didn't expect that the boy disappeared in an instant. He stopped and sighed helplessly. I just hope this kid has good luck and can return to the farm before the evening. In the evening, Peter was in the study and finally found relevant information about the sacred tree in the yard. He found the ash tree in Norse mythology. It is said that the world tree that supports the 9 realms is an ash tree. The name of this ash tree is Yggdrasil, known as the tree of the universe, tree of time, tree of life, connecting the 9 core kingdoms in the entire Norse mythology. The so-called 9 kingdoms, including the Nordic gods including Odin, live in Asgard and Vanaheim. Thor's mother is the old god of Vanaheim. The skilled craftsmen of the dwarves live in Nidavellir, the atrium where humans live, the hometown of the light elves, and the territory of the dark elves. And Jotunheim where the frost giants live, Niflheim commanded by Hela, and Muspelheim commanded by the fire giant Surtur. I have entered the inner world of the sacred tree, an extremely cold world surrounded by snow and wind. Could this extremely cold world be Jotunheim where the frost giants live? Thinking of this, he took a deep breath. If the ash tree outside is the world tree, wouldn't he be completely prosperous? With the world tree, wouldn't he become the master of the 9 realms? The king of the gods in the DC world Odin. Thinking of this, Peter's mood floated a little upward. It seems that the value of his farm may become immeasurable because of owning the world tree. But soon, Peter stopped his unrealistic imagination. The ash tree on his farm should not be a mature world tree. Because once the real world tree really comes to this world, the changes it causes will never be so small. Could it be the seed of the world tree? Peter walked to the ash tree and observed the other party in front of him who exuded a special breath. Reached out and touched the trunk. This time, because he was prepared, he was not pulled into the extremely cold world. Touching the trunk of the ash tree, a warm and cool breath slowly flowed into his body. Carefully feeling the changes in his body, he breathed evenly. After a few breaths, he opened his eyes and felt that his body seemed to be nourished by the world tree, becoming more light and powerful, and the spiritual sea in his mind seemed to be widened. Opening his eyes, under the strong filter, he felt that the world tree in front of him seemed to be emitting a sacred halo. It is said that the world tree can give people wisdom and enlightenment. Odin once hung himself upside down on the tree for 9 days and 9 nights, and finally realized the rune and gained powerful power. Since the ash tree in front of him is most likely the world tree, can he also realize the rune if he hangs himself upside down on it for 9 days and 9 nights? No. This will seriously affect his prestige in front of Azu and his naughty children. Pinching his chin, Peter fell into deep thought. He suddenly had an idea. If anyone disobeys in the future, he will hang the naughty child upside down on the tree. It can not only serve as a punishment and warning, but also allow talented children to have an epiphany. However, when doing this, you can't let the neighbors see it, otherwise if the other party calls the police, he will definitely be charged with child abuse. Looking up and looking at the lush world tree above his head, he roughly guessed the baby who would be born next. Since it is Norse mythology and the world tree, there is only one person who has a connection with it. Dad. When Peter was about to stay under the world tree for a while, Star-Lord came over worriedly. Clark hasn't come back yet, will there be an accident? Peter looked up when he heard his words, and the surroundings were already filled with night. Because he was too focused on the world tree, he almost forgot about Clark. After coughing, he said to Star-Lord and Azu who came over, "Let's go find Clark. If you find anything, contact me directly." After Peter left the farm, he first walked around the town. When he was about to leave the town, he received a call from Clark. Clark, who was exhausted, asked Peter to pick him up at the station. Half an hour later, squeak, the car door was opened, and Clark got out of the car with a face full of dust. Peter hurried over to help him. "Are you okay, Clark?" "I'm a little tired, Godfather," Clark said with a frustrated expression. "When I stopped, I had already reached Lake Tahoe." "Lake Tahoe? It's thousands of kilometers away from here, Clark." Clark nodded. "I know, Godfather, I can cross the entire country in the previous second, but the next second, I can't even run." Clark said this, with a trace of fatigue in his eyes. At this moment, he felt tired not only physically but also mentally. Peter shrugged his shoulders. "It seems that things are a bit troublesome." Clark got in the car, took a deep breath, and said to Peter who was about to drive, "Don't worry, Godfather, I will stay at home until the sunspots disappear." Peter shook his head. "It won't be that easy." Chapter 148 The tornado strikes and the third son arrives. The next day, Peter was repairing the car on the farm. Zoo went to school, Star-Lord was tinkering with his gadgets in the room, and Clark was helping him. Now he didn't dare to let Clark go to school. What if his ability got out of control and he smashed the students on the roadside? Then it would be completely over. "Godfather, what about Mr. Leno Luthor? He doesn't seem to believe our explanation," Clark asked worriedly. "Although he doesn't believe it, he won't act rashly. He is a smart man, so don't worry," Peter said as he asked Clark to hand him the wrench next to him. Clark handed over the wrench and asked him, "Godfather, is Mr. Luthor a good man? Dad has a very low opinion of him, but Godfather, you say he is not a purely bad person. Is this true?" Peter shook his head and said to Clark, "This world does not simply divide people into good and bad people. It seems that good people should be angels and bad people should be demons. But, Clark, you like to read Nietzsche, so you should know that this does not conform to the laws of the world, right?" Clark was stunned for a moment and said, "Yes, Godfather." He thought for a while and said to Peter, "Nietzsche said that we will divide people into self-sacrificing good people and selfish bad people, because the weak do not want to be dominated by the strong, but cannot defeat them, so in order to vent their anger, they label them as evil and call themselves good." He also said that if you get hit on one side of your face and you turn the other side over to get hit, it's probably because you feel you have no power to fight back. And the only way to satisfy your sense of revenge is to label the strong as a bad guy. In his view, the values of nature are not good and evil, but strong and weak. After a pause, Clark pursed his lips and said, "I don't think he's right, although he makes sense a lot of the time." "Wrong?" Peter looked at Clark in surprise. "Does this kid have his own independent philosophy? Because kindness and humility can never be described as incompetence without revenge or mean cowardice. Isn't it because humans are great that they can sympathize with others and resonate with emotions?" Clark expressed his opinion, a little embarrassed, and asked Peter unconfidently, "Godfather, do you think I'm right?" Peter was stunned and touched Clark's hair. "Nietzsche is great, but sometimes he is more like a cruel and bloodthirsty guy. He disdains the harm suffered by ordinary people and even thinks it is right. Whether it is doctrine or democracy, the privilege of the majority does not exist in Nietzsche's dictionary. So," Peter paused and said to him, "Godfather, I think you are right. Okay, help me lift the car. I want to check the chassis." "Don't use too much force to avoid throwing the car out." Peter asked Clark to help lift the car and told him to be careful. Clark nodded and put his hand on the car, trying to lift it. But no matter how hard he tried, he found that the car did not move at all. Finally, he looked at Peter awkwardly. Godfather, I don't seem to be able to do it anymore." Peter, at night, Peter watched the news broadcast on TV. The National Weather Service of the United States has issued a tornado warning for the Kansas area, and marked the alert as particularly dangerous situation. The Storm Prediction Center said that parts of Kansas and Oklahoma may have multiple tornadoes, some of which may be relatively strong. For the safety of the people and their lives and property, please take precautions. Tornado. Watching the news on TV, Peter raised his head and cast his eyes to the dark night outside. At first it was sunspots, and then there was extreme weather such as tornadoes. Was it caused by the World Tree? I remember that when the World Tree descended, it caused a small earthquake in the town, and then there was a series of extreme weather. Since the World Tree descended, it has been a troubled time. Peter stood up and walked to the window, looking at the ash tree in the courtyard. Then he looked down at his watch. The pointer was infinitely close to the end, and the arrival of the third baby should be within these few days. If Smallville encounters a tornado at that time, it will be troublesome. "Dad, are we going to leave Smallville like we did last time to avoid the wildfire?" Zoo frowned and asked Peter. "Not necessarily, it depends on the strength of the wind and whether the tornado will affect here." Although he said so, his brows still frowned. 3 days later, Peter received a notice that the residents of Smallville had to evacuate the town to avoid the upcoming tornado. 12 hours of evacuation time. Peter glanced at his watch and frowned even more. The time for the birth of the third baby was getting closer and closer, and he couldn't leave at this time. "Okay, Star-Lord, go pack up. John, go drive the livestock to the underground shelter." Peter ordered the two of them. "Hurry up." Zoo and Star-Lord hurriedly went their separate ways to do their own things. The wind outside was getting stronger and stronger, and the rolled-up leaves and crops were randomly thrown around. Under the strong wind was the rolled-up oil and sand, and the whole sky was gray. Only the World Tree in the courtyard stood upright like a rock. After Star-Lord packed up his things and Zoo drove the livestock into the basement, Peter drove the two of them to Kent Farm. At the farm, Peter got out of the car and said a few pleasantries to Jonathan and his wife, who came up to greet him, then asked them to take Star-Lord and Zoo away first. "Dad, aren't you going with us?" Zoo asked him in surprise. He thought Peter was going to drive him away, but he didn't expect his father to say, "I'll meet up with you later, you can leave with Uncle Jonathan first." Peter comforted the two. "No, Dad," Zhu refused directly and said in a serious tone, "I want to stay with you." Star-Lord on the side also said quickly, "Dad, I won't leave either, I'll go with you, aren't you obedient?" Peter glared at the two of them, then took a deep breath to calm himself down. "Have you forgotten? Dad is not an ordinary person. This kind of natural disaster can't easily hurt me." But Zhu wanted to say something else. Peter patted his shoulder and said, "John, you still have to take care of your brother." Hesitantly, Zhu looked at Star-Lord, and finally nodded helplessly. "Dad, can you promise me that you must come to me safely?" Star-Lord walked over and asked him worriedly. "Of course, Dad promises you." As he said, Peter handed the cage of Rocket Raccoon to Star-Lord. "You also have to promise Dad to take good care of Rocket. Can you do it?" "I will, Dad." Star-Lord nodded heavily. As night fell, the weather became worse and worse. The strong wind accompanied by the howling of heavy rain attacked the entire Smallville. Thunder bursts, heavy rain roared from the sky. On the road outside Smallville, residents who left the town drove their cars and drove slowly forward. Because of the weather, the car was driving very slowly. Squeak! Jonathan stepped on the brakes, looked at the car stopped in front helplessly, and said, "There should be an accident in front." Azu looked at the rain curtain outside the window worriedly, thinking about the farm and his father's situation. He waited for so long and didn't see Peter coming, which made him more worried. Seeing the car stop, he made up his mind and pushed open the door to get out of the car. Before Jonathan and Martha could react, Azu disappeared in the back seat in an instant. Star-Lord didn't react either. Until Azu's figure disappeared in front of him, he knew what the other party was doing. Seeing Azu leaving, Star-Lord also wanted to get out of the car anxiously, but was pulled by Clark. Seeing Star-Lord's anxious look, Martha also hurried to comfort him. "Calm down, Star-Lord, don't you believe in your father?" Looking at the heavy rain and continuous thunder outside, Star-Lord said anxiously. "But, John," although Clark was also worried about the Godfather's situation, he still calmly persuaded Star-Lord, "John can fly, he will be fine." On the other side, near Patrick's farm, Martha McConaughey, who set out from school, was delayed in evacuation due to arranging students. Driving the car, she rushed out of the town at the fastest speed she could. Wiping the rain off her face, she was almost soaked, looked down at the time, and stepped on the accelerator. When the car drove to Patrick's farm, she accidentally saw that the lights in the farm were still on. And through the blurred car window glass, she saw that there seemed to be a figure in the farm. Is that Peter, or Peter's two children? No matter who it is, the other party is in danger now. Although reason tells her that she should drive away immediately, her emotions still can't do it. After all, Peter saved her once. Gritting her teeth, Martha took out an umbrella, got out of the car in the heavy rain, stepped on the muddy ground, and walked towards the farm with one step deep and one step shallow. On the farm, Peter stood under the world tree, staring at the watch on his wrist. The pointer of the watch was close to the end. As he watched, with a click, the pointer reached the end. Peter raised his head suddenly, and the world tree in front of him suddenly emitted a misty breath, quickly surrounding him. He was instantly placed in the boundless void, and then with a whoosh, a colorful stream of light flew towards him. Peter was quick-eyed and quick-handed, and grabbed the stream of light. With a bang, a blue-skinned baby fell into his arms. At the same time, a vast amount of information poured into his mind. Chapter 149, My Enlightenment Under the World Tree. Soon, he knew everything about the identity of the baby in his arms and the information about the ash tree in the courtyard. Peter slowly opened his eyes, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised, looking at the blue baby in his arms, who looked curious and stared at him. As he expected, the baby sent by the system this time was Loki Laufeyson from the Marvel world. The son of Laufey, the king of the frost giants, the god of fire and mischief in Norse mythology, and also the god of evil and lies. Although this guy has great ambitions and strength, he has failed repeatedly in the Avengers world and is nicknamed a god with a mortal body. "Okay, I knew it was you," Peter whispered to himself while looking at the void in front of him. With the advent of Loki, he also knew the secret of the ash tree. As he guessed, this sacred tree is the famous world tree. However, the world tree in front of him is just an immature seed of the world tree. It does not have incredible power like the world tree in Norse mythology. There are no 9 realms, fountain of wisdom, or 3 goddesses of fate. All they have are the two worlds of Jotunheim, the kingdom of the frost giants, and Muspelheim, the kingdom of fire. And no creatures have been born in these two kingdoms. It seems that even if they have the world tree, there is still a big gap between them and becoming the lord of the 9 realms. Could it be that the reason why the world tree seeds were born in the courtyard was just to send Loki to them? Peter looked at Loki, who was making a babbling sound, and fell into deep thought. After thinking about it for a while without any results, Peter withdrew his thoughts and returned to the real world with Loki in his arms. As he appeared under the world tree in the courtyard, Martha McConaughey, who was braving the rain, finally came nearby. Seeing Peter suddenly appear in front of her, Martha was frightened and took a step back. Then a strong sense of uneasiness hit her. With a boom, the harsh sound of thunder rang in her ears, and the light as bright as day struck her eyes. A bolt of lightning cut through the sky and hit the world tree directly. Looking at Peter holding the baby under the world tree, Martha had no time to remind him to be careful, and the violent thunder surrounded Peter along the world tree. Peter, holding the baby, immediately felt a terrifying energy acting on him. After a breath, Peter found that the lightning that struck through the world tree did not seem to cause him any harm. Instead, it gave him a feeling of being filled with power and warm all over. Surrounded by the arcs of electricity, he felt something, looked up, and found countless obscure words falling from the world tree. The mysterious words composed of vertical lines and 45-degree oblique lines, each exuding a powerful and ancient breath. Shocked, Peter subconsciously reached out to grab the words. The moment he grabbed the words, these mysterious words all gathered into a storm in an instant and quickly poured into his body. What is this? Feeling the information conveyed by these words, Peter was shocked and lost his voice. This is actually the rune. A magical word popular between the Nordic gods. He remembered clearly that Odin had discovered the rune under the world. The Song of the Sages states, "I still remember that for wisdom, Odin, the god of the gods, stabbed himself with a spear and hung himself on the tree of life. For 9 nights and 9 sunrises, no one found him and gave him bread and water. When he looked down, he found mysterious words, so he stretched out his hands to catch them and fell from the tree. Now, just like Odin, I suddenly realized the runes. And I didn't tie myself to the world tree and practice asceticism without eating or drinking. It was just a coincidence that I was struck by lightning and got the runes. Or was it the reward that fate paid in advance for raising Loki?" At the same time, Martha next to him hadn't reacted yet, and she saw the lightning suddenly disappear from Peter. The next moment, with a bang and a dull sound, a burst of energy suddenly burst out from Peter's body and spread to the surroundings. Affected by this energy, the strong stimulation made Martha faint directly. Peter, who was awakened by Martha McConaughey's muffled groan, looked to the side and noticed Martha who had fainted. Holding Loki, Peter came to Martha's side at lightning speed and hugged her who was about to fall to the ground. Boom! Feeling the thunder in the distance, the strong whirlwind with raindrops attacked the farm more violently. Peter held Loki in one hand and supported the unconscious Martha with the other. He looked up and looked forward. The tornado that swept up the debris made bursts of crashing sounds and swept towards the farm with the momentum of destroying the world. Looking at the flying sand and rocks, the tornado that swept everything, Peter frowned slightly. He recalled the rune he had just obtained and learned from the world tree. Maybe he could try to use it. Thinking of this, Peter slowly stretched out a finger, and a layer of divine energy immediately surrounded it. Then he quickly constructed a rune in the void at lightning speed. If Odin was nearby, he would recognize at a glance that Peter had constructed a rune called the navigation rune. The most common use of this rune is to calm the storms and waves at sea, and to communicate with nature to calm the anger of nature. The moment the rune appeared, it emitted a mysterious energy wave. These waves swung towards the surrounding harsh environment at a very fast speed. The moment Peter constructed the rune with the energy of the gods, the energy emitted by the rune burst out instantly. A vast energy burst out towards the surrounding harsh environment, like an invisible hand, controlling the tornado so that it could not move forward. Coincidentally, Azu, who had left Jonathan, also arrived at the scene. Standing on the outskirts of the farm, he stared blankly at the scene of Peter releasing powerful energy to stop the tornado. The waves emitted by the rune, while imprisoning the space, also controlled Azu. Azu looked at the tornado with a shocked look, roaring unwillingly, carrying a powerful momentum, and was eventually dissipated by the rune energy in the void. After the tornado was completely suppressed by Peter, Azu swallowed his saliva and looked at him. He always thought that his father had similar abilities to his own, but he didn't expect that his father had this ability. If his father was really angry, according to his ability to suppress tornadoes, it would probably take only a few minutes to deal with him. Thinking of this, Azu felt a little fortunate that he had not made his father angry before. If his father was really angry, I am afraid that no matter how he resisted, he would not be his opponent. On the other side, Peter, who didn't know that he was dispelled by Azu, panted slightly after releasing the rune spell and glanced at the World Tree seed. Fortunately, the rune he just obtained came from the World Tree, so he didn't have to worry about being asked for debts. The magic used by the magicians in this world, such as Zatanna, the Three Witches, etc., all came from an existence outside the dimension in the dark. One day, the magicians will be returned by that existence to collect debts. His own rune is not included in this list, so he can use it boldly. Dad, Azu walked towards him with a shocked expression. After seeing the blue-skinned baby in Peter's arms, he was even more surprised. Dad, who is he? He never thought that he had just left for a while, and there was another baby next to his father. John, looking at Azu who appeared on the farm, Peter asked him in surprise, "Why are you back?" "I'm worried about Dad's situation, so I came back." Azu cast his eyes on the baby in Peter's arms. "Dad, did you pick up another baby?" He found that he seemed to be accustomed to his father's operation. He coughed. Peter coughed and said to the other party, "He was born from the tree. I happened to see it, so I took him down." Born from the tree. Azu looked at Peter in disbelief. Could it be that the other party was a fruit that had become a spirit? It could also be born from a tree? However, looking at the other party's blue skin and the strong aura emitted by the sacred tree that made him feel obscure and powerful, Azu really believed it a little. "Really? Dad?" Azu hesitated and looked at Martha in Peter's arms. "Isn't this really Martha's child, Peter?" This kid suspected that Star-Lord was his and Kelly's son, and now he began to suspect that he and Martha had an affair? Should he hang this guy on the World Tree for a few days to reflect? "Of course not," Peter said to him with a serious expression. "The tree in front of you is the World Tree and the Tree of Life. Although I don't know why it came here, this baby was born on the Tree of Life." After hearing this, Azu looked at the World Tree with half belief and half doubt. After dealing with Azu, Peter looked at Loki in his arms. This blue skin is indeed a bit weird. If he is allowed to grow up like this, he will probably live with the name of monster. Peter thought about it and soon found a suitable rune in his mind. He stretched out his finger, tapped the energy of the gods and accumulated it on his finger, and carved a set of healing runes on Loki's body to change the other's skin color. As the rune took effect, a strong light burst out, and Loki's skin instantly turned into the skin color of a normal baby. Azu, who was standing next to him, stared at Peter's operation in amazement. After the rune was used, Peter suddenly thought of something and asked Azu, who was stunned, "Where's Star-Lord?" Chapter 150, The Self-Sacrificing Spirit of the Hanged Man. Star-Lord. On the other side. "Don't worry, John and the Godfather will be fine," Clark comforted Star-Lord on the highway outside Smallville. Yet, although he nodded, the worry on Star-Lord's face did not dissipate at all. He looked out the car window, listening to the crackling sound of raindrops hitting the glass, and felt even more uncomfortable. Star-Lord was thinking about it, and suddenly there was a noise outside. After hearing the sound, Jonathan asked everyone to stay in the car and he went out to see. Bang! Pushing the door open and getting out of the car, Jonathan walked forward with difficulty in the wind and rain, and what he saw was a panicked crowd running from the front to the back. "What's wrong?" Jonathan grabbed the person's sleeve and asked him loudly. What happened? The rain was too heavy, and the other party could only shout to him, "Get out quickly, a tornado is coming." Hearing this, Jonathan looked up, and a gust of wind roared came from the dim night. The strong wind mixed with tiny debris made it difficult for him to open his eyes. Resisting the strong wind, Jonathan quickly walked to the car, opened the door and said to the few people, "A tornado is coming. Clark, Star-Lord, we have to leave here as soon as possible. Get out of the car." Hearing Jonathan's words, several people immediately got out of the car as quickly as possible, left the car and followed the crowd to run away from the road. When they came to a safe and open area, they suddenly heard a cry for help from a distance. It seemed that someone was stuck in the car and couldn't get out. Seeing that someone needed help, Clark wanted to use his super speed to rush over. But suddenly he felt his steps soften and his whole body was weak and tired. The influence of the sunspot on him had not completely disappeared, and his superpowers were useless at the critical moment. Clark stomped his feet in frustration, and when he was thinking of other ways, Star-Lord rushed out next to him. Under the guidance of Martian Manhunter, when encountering an emergency, Star-Lord finally released the power of God. After his body's reaction speed and strength increased, he rushed to the car of the person who shouted loudly before Clark and the Kent couple could react. The woman whose car door was blocked by other cars wanted to get out, but she couldn't push the door open. Seeing the woman knocking hard on the car window, trying to get out of the window, Star-Lord directly lifted the car that was blocking the door and moved it sideways. In the shocked eyes of the woman in the car, Star-Lord opened the door for her. In the howling wind, the rescued woman couldn't see Star-Lord's face clearly, but she still gave him a hug with tears of joy. Star-Lord, whose 5 senses were greatly enhanced by the energy of the gods, felt that the rain and wind were getting stronger and stronger. He didn't bother to talk to the woman and immediately pulled her to Clark. A few seconds later, the woman who had been running with Star-Lord for a while stopped and began to struggle to get rid of Star-Lord's hand. "No, my Lucy. My Lucy is still in the car," the woman screamed with all her might. "Your daughter," Star-Lord shouted loudly against the strong wind. "No. It's my dog, let me go, I want to save my dog." Hearing this, Star-Lord's brain suddenly crashed, but he was kind enough to shout loudly, "No, you can't go over there, it's too dangerous." Star-Lord pulled the other person hard. "No, Lucy is still in there," the woman wailed at the top of her lungs, saying that she must save her dog. Star-Lord, who had no choice, stamped his feet and said to the woman, "Then leave here quickly, I'll help you get the dog back." After that, he immediately ran towards the car. At this time, the howling tornado was infinitely close, and Star-Lord could only race against time. He came to the car in the blink of an eye and took the howling puppy out of the car. However, at the moment when he took the puppy out, the terrifying tornado had already swallowed up Star-Lord's position. Feeling the powerful and irresistible force acting on him, Star-Lord was instantly swept into the sky. Jonathan and others on the other side could not see the situation clearly due to the darkness of the night, and could only worry. The moment he was sucked into the tornado, Star-Lord, who was holding the puppy tightly, immediately felt a pain and a sense of difficulty breathing. The sand, stones and other debris in the hurricane kept hitting him. He even saw a car flying past him. Bang! Bang! Feeling the impact of his body, Star-Lord's divine body took effect and protected him from being torn apart by the hurricane. But because he could not freely control the use of divine energy, he could do nothing but be swept away by the tornado while trying to save himself. Star-Lord, who was holding the puppy in his arms and enduring the pain, suddenly thought of the divination that the gypsy lady had done for him before. At that time, the card he drew was a picture of a boy with a flowery head. The boy's heels were hung upside down and dangling upside down on the tree. His current situation seemed to be a bit like the hanged man. The gypsy girl said that he would encounter difficulties, pain and powerlessness, and his life would encounter a strong setback. Is it now? Just as Star-Lord was daydreaming, he suddenly thought of what he had said to his father at the time. If he believed in his father, he would not be defeated by setbacks. Taking a deep breath, Star-Lord suddenly opened his eyes. The next moment, in the dim and blurry flying sand, he vaguely saw a blurry figure outside the tornado. This figure seemed to be somewhat similar to his father. Am I hallucinating? Just when Star-Lord thought he was hallucinating, a string of strange and mysterious words suddenly appeared in the void. These words gave him a feeling that seemed to contain mysterious power. And the result was just as he expected. Every time a ray of pure white energy engraved a word, the concentration of that mysterious power became more obvious. Under Star-Lord's gaze, a line of mysterious words was written and engraved on the sky. Immediately afterwards, a vast energy burst out instantly, and the terrifying tornado was suppressed in an instant. In Star-Lord's shocked eyes, a figure soared into the sky and flew towards him. Star-Lord, who had no time to react, was hugged directly. "Jojo," Star-Lord stuttered as he looked at Azu, who flew up and hugged him. With a bang, Azu didn't say anything and fell to the ground holding Star-Lord. Peter, who had just used the rune to eliminate the tornado, felt a little tired. He looked at Star-Lord, who was shocked, and then looked at the pet dog in his arms, who was wet and shivering in the rain, and sighed helplessly. Did this naughty kid get caught in a tornado just to save a dog? Dad, seeing Peter standing in front of him, Star-Lord ignored the heavy rain and ran directly to Peter, who was holding an umbrella. "I knew you would come to save me, Dad." Star-Lord excitedly rushed to him. Feeling Star-Lord's body trembling, Peter looked down at him. You shouldn't do this, Star-Lord, you almost lost your life for a dog, Peter criticized Star-Lord. Hearing Peter's stern tone, Star-Lord bowed his head and whispered, I know I was wrong, Dad, I didn't think so much at the time, I thought I could run away, Dad, Star-Lord explained to Peter, but the tornado was too fast. If you were an ordinary person, you might have lost your life because of this behavior, Peter said in a serious tone. Remember, Star-Lord, never put yourself in danger because of other people's mistakes. Understand, Star-Lord nodded. Dad, I won't do it next time. That, he hesitated to ask Peter, Dad, did you cast that cool magic just now? His eyes were shining with curiosity and excitement. Peter, is this kid so heartless? He was almost blown away by the tornado just now, and now he wants to learn runes from me? Half an hour later. Padwick Farm. Star-Lord, who had returned, looked at the baby lying on the bed in shock and asked Azu beside him, where did this baby come from? Did Dad pick it up? I don't know, Dad said he picked it from a tree. Azu said something that made Star-Lord even more confused. He had always thought that babies picked from trees were just lies told by parents, and Aunt Kelly had told him so before. He didn't expect that babies were really picked from trees now. Picked from a tree? How could it be possible? He had already passed the age of believing such lies. However, looking at the ash tree emitting a hazy glow, Star-Lord was a little skeptical. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.